Should be good. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to HR Summer School. We're so glad you're here with us. Looking forward to some fun. Goodness gracious. It's a different feeling today because we're actually live. We have a studio audience back here. George went live just a few minutes ago. So if you did not see that, you'll have to go back and play that later on. See the studio audience here. Everybody excited. The students, as you called them, was like, he stood up, attention class, and everybody's like snapped to attention. I think that was like a secret desire. That's why you want to do this all along.
It was a dream of mine being to always be able to stand in front of a class. Now I've done that before, but the kids were younger, so it was like I was somebody important in their eyes in that. But today I am standing face to face with more important people on the other side of this camera. Y'all may not be able to see them, but I real quickly want y'all to hear them. If y'all can make some noise in the audience, make some noise, students. We are excited to have them here, and I'm just blessed to be back in the great state of Sweet Home, Alabama.
Sweet Home,
roll, Buckeyes, roll.
And with that, oh my goodness. Okay, we're going to start a fight before we get.
It's all love. It's all love,
George. Goodness,
it's all love.
For all of you who are new to summer school, welcome. We're so glad you're here with us. Please chime in the chat. I'm already seeing a lot of chatter and conversation happening. Let us know where you're chiming in from, what you're looking forward to today, what sort of things you're going through, what you're learning, all those sorts of things. Be a participant. That's one of the things about summer school that I feel is different. It's not just a spectator sport. It is an opportunity for you to plug in, be part of this, to let us know what you're learning, what you think. Hey, I've tried that. It worked. I've tried that. It didn't work. Those sorts of things that we go through. Just be helpful. Chime in, be there, and we'll bribe you. Okay, we got a whole table full of good stuff. We've got some good stuff to give away here for summer school. So we will be looking through the comments, finding people who are being helpful, who are being engaging, and we'll be tagging you as we go. Each day we'll be listing those out for giveaways, all that good stuff. Anything else before we jump to some announcements?
You know, Bean, and I don't like to talk too much beforehand because I'm excited about the speakers, especially with some of the new filling here live. We got some special speakers live and in person for the first time since ever.
Since ever?
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
Ever. All right, let's get into some announcements, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, so some quick things. Again, welcome. We're glad you're here. It's a different event, if you can't tell, and we hope that you are as excited to be here as we are to put this on for you. Thousands of people signed up for this, and we can see all you out there that are already, again, excited to be here. So let's jump in. A couple things. So I already said we're going to bribe you. We do giveaways. We do fun stuff, not just a bribe. Like, we want to reward you for being part of this community. Fair warning, anyone who's here in person is getting a whole bag full of goodies to take with them afterwards. So there's
food,
that. There's
and
that.
snacks.
And snacks.
And special cake pops.
Cake pops. I have to warn George not to eat on camera. Okay. So good giveaways, the books, all those sorts of things coming your way. So thank you to iSolved and the team for that. We have some other stuff coming this week as well. HRCI, SHRM credits. All of us that are certified want to make sure we get those taken care of. Those come at the very end of the event. That's for the whole event. You don't get that for one session or another. It's all or nothing. So plug in. Here we go. And then this is a live stream. So as you can tell, we are fully live. George is eating on camera.
Number one rule of live stream is don't eat on camera.
Don't eat on camera.
But when it's so good, it makes you want to smack your mama. You got to do it. You just have to do it. It's part of our sponsor here as well. So it's a little promotion.
Oh, sure it was. Sure it was. Hey, let's give a shout out. So we appreciate the team. Mike Bean, the team at Vervic, they actually are hosting us here, and we appreciate them for setting the space up. Hey, we love summer school, love the good work that they're doing, and so we just want to give this away to you. So thank you to them for what they're doing. They're a HR consulting firm based here in Huntsville, but they do work across the country. He was telling me he's actually doing a fractional CHRO role for a company down in South Alabama right now, and they're like, yeah, it's basically everything's on fire, and you get to decide which fire you put out first. So he's in the middle of that. So
welcome to HR.
Yes, thank you.
Reactive versus proactive.
Thank you. I know.
We're gonna hear something.
We're gonna get to that. Don't spoil the fun, George. Come on.
Sorry.
All right. So thank you to our incredible sponsors for supporting the event, for being alongside us, for trying to bring this to the community. They know how important it is that all of us aren't just passive showing up, putting in the days, but we're here to learn, to get better, to be smarter, to take care of our people and align with the business. That's what each of these companies is here to do. And we'll hear from many of these during the event this week as they're chiming in on sessions and being active in the chat as well. So we're excited for that. All right. Shout out to all of you. It's fun. George, for me, I'm looking at this, and some of these people who are here, who are getting shout outs as they've been at the event before, are actually speakers this time.
I know. Yes. It's crazy how over time things have changed. You go from students to almost you're like a, what do you call it? Graduate sponsor or graduate professor?
They're what, teaching assistant maybe?
Teaching
TA,
assistant.
I don't know. So
you're always smarter than me. You're just so great.
I won't dispute that. Okay, so we're going. Well, one or two more things really quickly. Just real quick. So if you are one of those people that's going to be at the SHRM conference, George is going to be there. He's going to be there in person, live, and he'll ask him. He'll do the little pointing thing he does in all his pictures, which I think is so cool that I don't have that kind of cool factor. He'll be there at SHRM. If you scan that code, you can actually sign up and come. We're doing some fun stuff there. He'll be doing some interviews like man on the street, what's happening in HR today, some fun stuff at SHRM. So sign up, check that out. We have all these good shirts. We'll be wearing some at some point at this conference, at this event. We'll be sharing those out. Let's see what else we got here. An agenda. How about we tell you what's coming? So these times are Central Time. So change that for wherever you happen to be. But we have a quick opener today. We're going to dive in just a minute with our live session for this event. Each day of summer school this year, we'll have a live session recorded right here. George arrive. We'll move and I'll bring our speaker up and we'll do that, stream it out to all of you. So we'll have that one come up with Caitlin Sampson, really talking about the importance of the human in HR. I heard her share on this recently and I was like, you've got to do that at summer school. It's so powerful. And then we'll dive into a conversation with Amy Mosher. She's become your best friend. She was my best friend already. So we'll have to put her to the test on who is her favorite.
Yeah, the thing about Amy is that you're going to smile like I'm already smiling, and your jaws and cheeks are going to be sore because she's a great person. You won't walk away from a conversation without having some joy in your life.
There you go. And then we'll get into some other good stuff as we go. So that's your first couple sessions, a preview of the day. And I think that's it for the moment. George, anything else before we swap out and bring Caitlin up here?
It's time for me to go check in with my next class. So we're going to kick off HR Summer School with one of the greatest spontaneous speakers I've ever met.
Oh my goodness.
And she's going to be a blessing to y'all. So ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Principal Ben, but also my good friend, Miss Caitlin.
All right. Oh, goodness. So Caitlin, you are somebody special, somebody who I respect and appreciate. I put you on the spot last year we had Disrupt HR here happen locally. And I said, we're going to do something crazy. We're going to do an HR improv session. Just put some slides up they've never seen before. And they've got to try to relate that back to HR. And if you saw it, you know, it was hilarious and terrible at the same time. That was really hard on you, I think. Right. So
hot mess for sure.
Yes. Yeah. So you and George both were my stuckies for that one. I've volunteered you to chime in. The audience loved it. It was humorous. It was fun, but it was hard to do. So yeah. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So before we get into some of the fun stuff on the human in HR, talk about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I'm Caitlin Sampson. I work at Trifecta Services here in North Alabama, Huntsville. It's an engineering services firm. And if it's HR, it is in my wheelhouse. So employee relations, benefits, chaos coordinator, dumpster fire connoisseur is my wheelhouse. I also am part of the local SHRM group, North Alabama SHRM. I'm the president-elect and do a lot of their certification as well. And then can't forget about the PTO for the kids. And we just finished coaching soccer.
All right.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. That's wild.
Never a dull moment.
There is no. I think I shocked you the other day. Actually, you and I live in the same town. I saw you at the grocery store and you're like, oh yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, you're a person too. So in addition to being HR, I can verify that she's a person too. She had a very healthy selection in her grocery cart. So we're all good. All right. So we're going to dive into some fun stuff. The human part of this. And I said that joke because sometimes HR gets this rap. If you look at the news, you look at not the news, but the TV shows, the movies, like HR is incompetent. They're cruel. They're heartless. They're dumb. Like there's some version of that as a stereotype there. And I want us to talk about the importance of the human side of this because it's a thing we cannot lose if we want to have the impact on people that we're really hoping to. So I saw you speak recently on this topic of keeping the human in HR. And I'd love to hear from you. Just start us off. Why does that matter in your opinion?
Sure. So for me, it all started. I actually accidentally got into HR.
Like a lot of people probably.
I thought that I was going to be a flight nurse on a helicopter. And then you had to weigh like 120 pounds geared out. And I like cupcakes. So that was not the job for me. And then also, I really liked having a lot of impact in terms of learning, training, and development. And so I sat down back in the day and looked at a catalog at the university I was attending, and I thought, what's going to get me out of math? Because I would also like to do that. And so I stumbled upon HR on accident, and I call home and I said, Dad, I think I want to do HR. And he looked at me and he said, why would you want to do that? And I said, it's literally a resource for humans. That's the very definition. Why wouldn't I want to do that? And he said, Caitlin, nobody likes them. And so again, in all of my wisdom at 20, I said, well, why? Why wouldn't you just love people that are trying to help you? And he said, they fire people, Caitlin. And I said, oh, well, I could do that. And he said, I have no doubt. And then at that day, Dad and I learned that we would never work together. But my takeaway from that was HR people do have a bad rap, and we have so much more to offer than just to be the rule maker in our offices. And so you talked about impact, and our impact that we have the opportunity to make is sure some policy and procedure, but it's really honing in on that people component of what it is that we do. So for example, I do a lot of benefits. Actually, our open enrollment started this week. Benefits are boring, and there's a ton of compliance. And
how do you really feel?
Benefits are boring.
Don't mask your feelings. Don't mask your feelings for them, Caitlin. Let's let it all out.
Sure. So employee relations is my jam. But benefits, though boring, are so important. Yeah, that is how we help employees take care of their families. Yeah. And so being able to not only talk about benefit plans and talk about some of these things, but when I have an employee whose wife is undergoing cancer treatments or when their kid needs mental health support, I am knowledgeable about how to best support that employee so that employee can in turn support their family. That is gold for me. That has nothing to do with a policy. Also with human in HR, and I'm glad that you could share our Walmart interaction, because if I recall, when I saw you in Walmart, I said, please don't tell anybody what my Walmart attire looks like, because I moved on the outskirts of town so I wouldn't run into people that I worked with. But I digress. And another part of the human in HR is that we have to give ourselves some grace. And so that's hard. Because vulnerability in our roles is hard. But at the end of the day, we're people too, and we have to really embrace that. And I think keeping that in the front of our minds and taking care of each other, taking care of our employees, taking care of us, that really hones in on the people part of HR that is a motivator for me.
Yeah, when I think about, I kind of make the joke, usually when on stage, saying how many of us got into this to fill out paperwork, to keep track of all the things people do wrong at work, like all the sorts of things. Like none of us get in for those reasons. We end up doing that as a natural byproduct of the job. It's part of that other duties is assigned, like that ends up catching everything. But hey, the toilet's not working. Somebody call HR. I'm like, okay, sure, why not?
The party planners.
Yes, like what? Yes. All those things. And at the same time, as you said, like that's the admission price to get to do these other things where I am helping someone with a benefit that's going to take care of their family member who's in a hard time. Or listen, here's our bereavement policy. I'm so sorry to hear about your mom. You know, where can I send some flowers? Like being able to have those conversations and have that connection to people, I think is the most human part of this there is. And in all the, you know me, I write about and I talk about AI a lot, and like those things can't do that part for us. The human part is emphasized over and over again. Whenever automation happens, whenever AI happens, the human part is emphasized because the AI can't replace that piece of it. What 100%. We do.
Absolutely.
So if someone out there is saying, I want to embrace the human, I want to bring that back in. Maybe I have gotten a little bit too tactical. I have gotten a little too caught up in the to-do list, which is a good thing. But again, not all on there probably isn't be human to someone. It's probably not written on there in the to-do list. What is your advice for that? How can they do that better, or how can they keep that top of mind?
Sure. I would offer two major pieces of advice. And one of them has to do with, you've got to know you. You've got to know what makes you tick, what motivates you, what brings out the best in you, what brings out the worst. And you've got to be clued into some of those things, because it does matter when we go into work and we are now putting out all of the dumpster fires, and we are organizing the chaos and making it happen. The other piece of advice that's kind of linked to that a little bit, HR, like many leadership oriented roles, is not always the most popular place to be.
Tell me you don't mean that. Surely not.
Yeah, every HR person I know totally got into HR so they would be popular and loved.
For the glory. Yes.
And so for me, the takeaway there is that with HR, anybody that's going to, and I say the term survive, if we are going to survive in our roles as HR professionals, we've got to have people. Your tribe, your battle buddies, your circle, whatever you want to call it, and those are the people where there is an incredible amount of two-way trust. But the people that come to me and say, Caitlin, that was harsh, or Caitlin, I think you're being a little intense right now, or give me a pep talk, or things like that. Those are not the people that are telling us that we're right all the time. Those are the people that are keeping us in check. Yes. And that's important, because, at the end of the day, who's HR for HR? We are.
Yeah. We have to be.
Gotta be.
Is that what drew you into some of your volunteer roles, like in the community and in this state and in this local area, like that need to make sure that we are providing that community for people?
I think so. Impact is a really big driver for me. If I don't have impact in my community or in my organization, then I'm not interested. And so I think that was definitely a gap that I saw. And I like people, although, we're complicated and we all have a lot of baggage. Yes. We have a lot to offer. And I like being able to be the catalyst to orchestrate some of that, to make sure that at the end of the day, we all have a person.
So go back to the first thing you mentioned, the know yourself. I had a chance yesterday to speak to an HR group in Wisconsin, and Daphne, shout out to Daphne, she came up to me and said, hey, I wanted to tell you, last year I was feeling stressed and burnt out. I was having some trouble and challenges. I was like, okay, that sounds like the day-to-day in HR. She's like, it was even more difficult than that. And she said, what I did is I took my phone and I turned it off, and I went out into this 12-hour walking event, 12 hours walking. You can't take anything with you, no stuff, no phones, nothing else. And she said, I came out with such clarity about what I wanted to do and where my strengths were and how this company wasn't even really a good fit for me overall. But until I did that, I was just trying to figure out how I could work hard enough to make it all work. Right. And she said, I finally understood that piece. And so going back to you have to know yourself. If you have not taken a moment to unplug from everything else for just a little bit, that's one of the best ways to figure that out. What's that quiet time? Because that's when I think of new things, when I get creative. She said her biggest lesson learned was next time I got to take something to write with, because she said, all these ideas, like, darn it, what was that thing I thought of in the third hour? I can't remember what that was. Sure. And so that was her difficulty, but finding some quiet time, unplugging, getting away. And for me also, when I have a chance to contribute, that's one reason I did the same sort of thing that you're doing, where I plugged into the local community, because it's like, this job is too hard to do it solo. And when we come together, we can do some incredible things that we couldn't do in our own separate lanes.
Absolutely.
So, okay. All right. So that was number one. And then number two, I'm already forgetting.
Circle.
Have your circle. So it's related. Have your circle. Have your people. So for those of you out there, summer school is a great way to do that. We're actually talking to some of our attendees about putting together a more formal way to connect with each other outside of summer school hours, so that you can get into a community where people are talking about things you care about, you're connected to. Maybe you're looking for work right now. We give you a way to plug into that. Maybe you are someone who does love benefits, and Caitlin has like a question about benefits and she doesn't want to love them, and she wants to ask those of you that do, like those sorts of things. So we're working on some of those kind of things, but not just a virtual piece, but try to have someone that you can connect to and have a conversation with, because I love when I get a text from you or whatever else, but I love it even more when I get a chance to sit down in person, have a conversation, because the sparks fly in the best way, like great ideas, new things we can think of, all that kind of stuff. So yes. I'm grateful for that.
Yes.
All right. So there's some homework for all of you. We're already giving homework out first session. So I don't know if you're their favorite or their, well, probably
Me, you.
So far, you're their favorite. She said it. I'm just telling you what she said. I just get to reiterate, and I sound smart because I talk to smart people. That's the secret behind summer school. Okay, so let's go into, I want to sort of double click on something I mentioned earlier around, there was a story in the news just recently where a company, big enterprise company, replaced thousands of its people with AI. Many of those were HR people. And some people were like celebrating that. They're proud of that. I was a little horrified by that because, again, I don't want an AI to do some of the things that are innately human and a big part of our job. And so if someone, true or false, if someone is out there and they are only doing the stuff and they're not connecting, they're not building their relationships, they're not focusing on that human side of it, I would think that they're the most likely to be replaced by some algorithm if they're not doing that.
True.
You think true? How do we embrace the human skills? You talked about like the community feeling that. So if I'm at work, what are some of the human things that I can make sure I'm doing? Plugging in. You gave me an example of this recently around like a mental health challenge for someone that you had heard from. Like those sorts of things are, again, we can't just, oh, well, there's a way to get that on the website or there's an intranet for those things. That's a chance for us to be human.
Sure.
And connect.
So AI is certainly a hot topic right now. And I think for a lot of us, especially in HR, because not only do we have to know how it impacts us, but we've got to know how it impacts everybody else too.
Yes.
Never mind the compliance challenges that come along with that. And we don't even know what we don't know yet. So we are active students in anything related to AI. I think AI has its place. Yeah. I think AI is a tool. I think as HR professionals, we are going to have to know how the AI can and maybe should or should not fit into what it is that we do day to day. You're familiar with the love languages.
Oh, yes.
Gary? Okay.
Oh, yes.
So AI.
You're going to get George all stirred up, by the way. Love languages. He's going to get all hopped up. So fair warning, when he comes back, that's the first thing he's going to say. I have no doubt.
So love languages, if you've not read the book, please do so. It also, it links into love languages of appreciation in the workplace as well, which is really what makes HR people tick. So when you look at love languages, quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, those are not things that AI is going to be able to do for us. And so that is where, as an HR person, we create our value. So anybody that is a working parent knows that every day is just another day of trying to keep the work life and the home life on the tracks.
Yes.
So earlier this week, my kid was sick. Thank you. Ear infections and pink eye, and they're gross, right? So anyway, he's fine, but I could have relied on AI to do a telehealth appointment. Okay. But you know what AI did not do for me or could not do for me? How about yesterday, as I was gearing up for today, my boss at Trifecta reached out to me and he said, do you need a sitter? I can sit for you. Is your kid taken care of? I just wanted to make sure that you had what you needed to do to focus. AI can't do that. Yeah. So that is a really human oriented piece of what it is that we're doing. You know, I had an employee reach out and said, I'm a huge mental health champion. I'm here for it. And employee said, do you have a counselor? And I said, yeah, I do, but talk to me about the urgency here. Is this we can schedule an appointment or are we going to the ER? And long story short, I reached out to a couple of my tribe members in the HR community, and several of them said, oh, we have an EAP for that. And that was hard for me because you want me to give an 800 number to a parent who is worried about their child, the livelihood of their child. You want me to give that person an 800 number? I don't think so. I will figure this out. And because of that tribe that I mentioned that we have here, that kid had an appointment that day. AI can't do that.
Mm.
And that's huge. And so that makes that employee feel like that we are not only taking care of them, but we are very invested in making sure that they are equipped to take care of their family.
Yes. Because when their family's taken care of, they can actually show up at work. They can actually do their work other than having their mind be somewhere else, worrying about this, that, the other thing.
Absolutely.
100%. Okay. So I know the audience out there, I'm seeing the chat over here running through, and everybody's like appreciating this, talking about the importance of this, all these sorts of things. You're going to have fun going back and scrolling through those. If someone wants to connect with Caitlin, wants to follow you, wants to just get more of this sweet Southern charm, what's the best way for them to do that?
LinkedIn, absolutely. And please connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to link with you.
Okay. Once we get this next session going with Amy, I'll make sure and drop Caitlin's. We'll make sure her name gets dropped in there so you can connect to her on LinkedIn if you want to do that. And we'll be, after the event, sharing all of our speakers' LinkedIn contacts. You can reach out, follow all of them en masse. Just a heads up, she's probably going to get a ton from this as terms of outreach, but send her a note that says, hey, I loved this. I love that. I agree with you on the human. I love cake too. Whatever the thing is you want to share with her, please do. Or I hate benefits, whatever the.
Or tell me I'm wrong and we'll talk about that too.
Yes. You can tell her that she's wrong and she will come get you. So, all right. Hey, I love you. Appreciate you. Thank you so much, Caitlin, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
For kicking us off. George adds production value. What in the world am I going to do?
Which Briggs, is this from Briggs?
I can't remember if that's from which of the children that's from. That's one of the
Shout
children.
out to kid number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Is that where we stopped at? Eubanks kids? Are you still growing?
So we're at 4-ish.
4-ish.
Right now. Yes.
Okay. Four and a bonus.
The good news.
Sorry.
The good news is we just got our adoption date for July. That just came in the last couple of days. So our adoption date for our foster daughter is coming. So
incredible.
That's an exciting time. We've been waiting for that for 15 months or so. So
you know what I want to say to you, Ben? I love that she said love.
Oh, yes.
Because I love you and I love all these beautiful people here. And because I love you, I know that you're going to expect something from me. And I think everybody else is. Everybody wants to see shoes, but I'm not even talking about shoes right now.
Okay.
I'm talking about my second greatest passion. When she's talked about love, Ben, I thought about love in HR, the heart of HR, because I'm an acronym junkie, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
So I did, while she was talking, write an acronym for love. And I just want to share it real quickly because I think this is going to be going right into what Amy's going to be talking about. L, should I sing it? L is
for the way you look. No.
Listen deeply. So when it comes to HR, listening deeply, I think that's something that's very important, especially whether it's payroll, whether it's benefits, whether it's get in touch with AI. You talk about whatever you got to do, you have to listen deeply.
Yes.
Number 2, you got to own the culture. Own the culture. We can't own the company unless you pay us like you. So when owners and CEOs say, we want you to take ownership, the only thing we as employees, and I'm including HR because we are employees as well, we can own the culture. We can own how we feel, believe, and behave most of the time. Not all the time. V is value people. And I think what I love about HR is that we value people. We recognize the worth of each individual. And I think we can't take that for granted. And E is empower. We got to be able to empower others to grow. Whenever I think about growth and I think about my days of owning 18 retail stores, we didn't start growing our stores until we started investing in our people and checking in on them. And I think that's so important. If you want to have something good, you keep it to yourself. If you want to have something that's going to grow, you have to empower other people to do that. And so I love Caitlin. Shout out to my girl, Caitlin. And
y'all been in the trenches together. I mentioned that improv thing.
We have been spontaneous together.
All right. So give me those all 4 really quickly again. So LOVE.
Listen deeply, own the culture, value people, and empower growth.
There we go. All right. So we have some great people in the comments, like they were waiting for George to get acronyms. It took us, 5
one little session.
It took 5 minutes of camera time for George to get an acronym going. So, all right, we're going to have our next session here up with Amy Mosher. We're going to pull that one, get things up and running here. So, Amy, I'm so excited to hear from you, learn from you. She is over at the team at iSolve. She's their head of people, and she's going to talk about how we can be more strategic. The session title, I put her on the spot a little bit. Like the session title is the last session on strategic HR you'll ever need. And so there we go, setting a high bar for Miss Amy. Let's jump into this and have some fun. Welcome to summer school. So glad you're here with us and looking forward to talking with one of my favorite people on the planet. No pressure here, Amy. Goodness gracious. So she and I go way back. I've had so much fun getting to know Amy over the last few years and the good work that she and the team at iSolved are doing. And I'm so excited she's here with us for what is the very grandiosely titled the last session on strategic HR you'll ever need. So no pressure, my friend. I mean, no pressure, but we're going to have some fun. We're going to talk through some things. We're going to get some good takeaways. I can almost guarantee you all are going to laugh at some point during this because that's just what happens when we get together. So Amy, welcome.
Thank you so much, Ben. I don't accept any pressure here at all. We're just going to have some fun.
Perfect. Sounds good. Before we get to the good stuff, would you take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do?
Sure. I am the Chief People Officer at iSolved. We are a human capital and capital management company. We are really enjoying ourselves over here, growing like crazy. We've got an incredible product. I use all of our products and solutions to help it enhance the culture of my own business. But I've been in HR for 25 years and I'm just enjoying every minute of it. So happy to share some of what I've learned today.
Before we get into the fun stuff, what's something that's not in your official bio, Amy?
What's not in my official bio? Well, I have a face tattoo. That's a good one. That comes out anytime I play Two Truths and a Lie. And it's my eyebrows, but it's still a face tattoo. and it trips them up every time. So it's a good one.
Right.
Now I can never do it again, though. My secret is out.
We have exhausted. Well, it's not in your bio, probably. So you maybe still be safe.
No, not in my bio. Not in my bio.
For Two Truths and a Lie, you've got that one taken care of for sure.
From a bio perspective, I'm going to tell you that I have had the opportunity to work on a lot of different challenges and change management. And that's not something that's on my bio. It's not something that you see kind of in anybody's resume, right? But I think it's fueled my entire career, just being able to pivot. And I think it gives me a unique perspective into how HR can really impact quickly.
So I want to talk to you about HR strategy, but first we're going to get there through this sort of path that I've got planned out loosely in my head. And I want to first ask you to comment on something that's happening in the market right now. There's a trend that I'm seeing that's frankly alarming to me, and you can find these headlines all over, and it's about HR burnout. All of our friends who are doing this good work every day are stressed, they're burnout, they're feeling this like I've never seen before. It's just harder than ever. And speaking to an audience just last week and said, hey, how many of you would say that it's harder to do this work? And like most of the hands in the room go up. Yes, it's just more difficult. Why do you think that is? Why do you think this stress and burnout piece is like on the rise? And any comments on that?
You know what? I hate talking about the pandemic because it's near on 5 years ago, right? At this point, but HR got it onto a pedestal at that time. Like people started listening to what we had to say, to be perfectly honest. And with that exposure comes expectation. And I think there's a lot of opportunity now that we have to execute on a lot of strategic initiatives and be a part of the discussion. And that makes our jobs harder. I think we also see what's possible when we're fully engaged in an organization now. And so you're pushing your function, I think, in a different way and changing and evolving. And that's creating learning and lack of comfort zone. And that also creates burnout. I also feel like socioeconomic times being what they are, the employee expectations are changing, the business expectations are changing. And with that, we've got to be able to change, but faster, right? So that we can help to support that. We need to be in the front of the curve on that change. And that's stressful. And that creates, again, a lack of comfort zone and having to really think outside of the box and anticipate things we've never had to anticipate before, as well as just getting your regular day job done, making sure that employees are getting their paychecks and that you're supporting individuals that are on leave and you're supporting managers through tough situations and all of those things that kind of take up a day when they don't go quite right, right? And so you're dealing with all of that reaction while trying to be proactive. And I think that's what causes it.
You're talking about those things. I was waiting for, if you didn't bring it up, I was going to bring it up myself saying, oh yes, all these things and your day job you were hired to do. You go, make it all happen. Who knew that other duties as assigned for HR would be the biggest bucket in our to-do day to day, like the things that aren't spelled out, written down, but they're part of what we have to accomplish. That's a reality there. So goodness, I want to go into all those different ones there. And the one that you said, I wrote down, with exposure comes expectation. And there's this higher expectation. And the other piece that I haven't stopped to think about myself, but I think it's a great call out, you said, is once you see the chance you have to make an impact, we're drawn back to that again and again because that's exciting. That's what many of us got in HR to do. We got it in there to make those alignments, make those connections, add value, help people find work that's meaningful, make sure the business is accomplishing these big things and solving big problems, all that stuff. But that's not simple. That's not easy. If it was easy, anybody would do it. So they're hard, but it's also valuable and important stuff to do. And at the very end there, you talked about this reactive to proactive. And that's what the big theme of today for the event is moving from reactive to proactive. That's what our shirts are about. Everything else. It's not just being a fire extinguisher, but having a fire prevention plan. And what I would love to hear from you is some of those things you were talking about are part of the strategy side where we're actually thinking about and planning for. But then you talked about all the other stuff we do day to day. Much of that is very reactive. And so how do we balance those two things out when both need to get done? But sometimes we've got to make a hard choice between I've got a limited number of hours, I've got to put it into something, and I've got to pick the thing that's gonna add, not just be a one-time, one-off sort of thing.
I agree. So I would say work smarter, not harder, even though that's like the oldest mantra in the world. I feel like you can maximize impact with intention. I think that speaks really well to what you're talking about today. You're going to focus all of your energy, or as much energy as you can afford, on impactful, repeatable things rather than chasing the work or the busyness. You want to make sure that you're eliminating that HR busy work. You're going to lean in on automation right now, AI, right? Those tools that are going to streamline everything that you have to do day to day that you do repeatedly, right? Think of it as, like your personal admin, right? Is all that automation.
Yes.
And then I think you're also not taking it on alone. I feel like there's a real opportunity here when you're strategic and you're sharing the burden with your leaders, because these problems that you're solving every day are not HR problems, they're business problems. And you've got to be in lockstep with your leadership, empower them, enable them, make them culture carriers and culture leaders, like have them be standing next to you, and they're a part of your team and you're a part of their team. And I think that will also help alleviate some of that pressure and burnout.
I'm going to paraphrase it poorly, but in his book Atomic Habits, James Clear talks about work on what builds, not on what evaporates. And
that's right.
Sort of what you're like, those relationships you're talking about, those are places that are going to just build and build and build over time, not something I'm just going to do once and then a week or later no one's going to remember it even happened.
Yes.
So let's dive deeper into that a little bit, because there are some people that work at an organization like iSolved and others that they get a chance to speak to leaders who are receptive, who are supportive, who are looking forward to that. Hey, let's get in lockstep. Let's do these things together. Let's make headway on behalf of the business through the people, which is a great place to be. There are others that maybe don't have that, or they just join an organization and they're not sure what the appetite for that is, we'll say. So what advice would you give someone out there listening in that's maybe trying to build those inroads that don't exist? How should they start?
Yeah, here's something super practical that I've employed at almost every business that I've been at. And that is, as leaders come on board, and also annually, you build some curriculum and you coach them and you give them the tools to understand that they are partners. It's almost like, for us, we call it iSolved Supervisor 101. And it's not just how you get things done as a leader at iSolved. It is why. Right? It's not just what you get done, it's how and it's why. It's the underlying factor. It's the expectation that part of your job as a leader is to equip them as coaches, not just taskmasters, right? Helping them understand the expectations, include the values of the organization, not just what they're getting done, if that makes sense. And then keep repeating that and rebranding it and calling them out and recognizing leaders that are doing a really great job of it, so that they can see and others can emulate that kind of behavior. So really putting a spotlight on it and keeping it consistent and always driving for it. I feel like middle managers especially are the most underutilized lever in HR. I feel like they are just in this island, and they're just kind of thought of as, oh, taskmaster, right? Like, go check off the list and make sure everything is getting done. And they're often hungry for it. They want this knowledge. They want to be coached. They want to be held accountable for it. So that's what I would recommend. That's one of the things I would recommend.
Well, to piggyback off of that, they want the opportunity to do that. But as you pointed out, the beginning wasn't, here's more stuff to do. It's, let me equip you. Let me get you ready for this, because I can't just give you more stuff, more things, say, hey, good luck taking care of those people under your care, without saying first, here's what it looks like to do that here. Here's what we expect from you. Yeah, don't do these things, Supervisor 101, like, let's avoid this bad stuff. But let's spend some time on what that good stuff looks like. We had a great session at summer school this year with Kamaria Scott, where that's where she's going really deep into helping managers have that vision of what success looks like. But I wanted to call that out for the audience, because I was hoping you were going to make these connections. You were talking about, let's say, well, managers. Like, I didn't ask you about managers. I asked you about, how do we do this as HR? And that's the answer. Is so much of that comes back around to us could have been solved when it was this big, when that manager is that first line of defense, you want to call it that, to serve that person and support them, the grease in the gears to make things move in the organization. And when that's not there, all of that friction bubbles up to HR almost every time.
It does. Certainly does. Couldn't agree more.
So we've got our managers alongside. We've got these leaders here that are helping their people. They're taking care of them. They're helping us to have some things that are not on our plate because they're being solved at that level. What other things can we be doing around this to be more proactive and not just reactive to all the things that happen? Is it using some of the data and trends we can see to say, hey, listen, this has come up every single month. It's probably going to happen again next month. Let's plan for that. Is it stuff like that?
Yeah, Ben, you're setting me up like this. You served it on a silver platter there. Absolutely. You know, I'm a data geek. You already know this about me.
Listen, we are friends in that completely. The audience out there is probably like, oh gosh, here we go. But you know, hey, George is probably right now, George, that studio audience watching right now is probably, he's grinning ear to ear looking at me because he knows I'm grinning because you just said data. So there's that.
No, look, data analysis is incredibly important for every business function. There's no reason why it wouldn't be incredibly important for HR. The only constant within every business is people, as you know. And so analyzing your people data is incredibly important. It's often something that you can get data that you can get clean, right? You can clean it up pretty well. It's easily understood for the most part if you've got the right systems and the right processes. And then you've got access to so much of it. Right? You don't often have to go digging into a lot of different places. Maybe you do if you're working with disparate systems and you don't have a great HR platform like I saw. But there's a lot of ways that you can look at the data, that you can see the trends. We have predictive people analytics, which helps put it into a beautiful little dashboard for us. But it doesn't matter. Get a spreadsheet, put it together, decide what your core KPIs are as far as the business drivers are from an HR data perspective, and start tracking them. View them, review them, clean them, make sure that it's clean, right? Make sure you've got some kind of repeatable process so that you can analyze this information. It's going to give you leading indicators, to your point earlier, Ben, on how your business is performing from a people perspective, which will in turn impact business performance overall. And then build some self-service tools if you can. Automate. We've got a huge push here all over our business around automation and AI. We're challenging every single employee to come to the table with new ideas on how they can automate what they do and how they work and help them to be more effective. I feel like those kinds of activities are incredibly important for businesses right now and HR teams as well. And then employ self-service wherever you can. Like we've got a great AI-enabled chatbot, for our employees that we utilize that takes all those regular problems and regular questions that can be easily answered by someone flipping open the handbook or going into a policy or going into the system to look at their, PTO balances. And think about mobile experiences as well. Like we've never been more remote, right? Is your information that you're providing to your employee base available to them wherever they are? Right? Incredibly important. And all of those things will give you more time in your day to be more strategic as well.
So I'm gonna since you went down the data nerd route like heavily, even more heavily than I would have expected. So give me a couple of metrics that you would recommend the audience be using to talk to their leaders. Let's assume that they've talked to their leaders. They're saying, hey, bring me some and we'll figure this out. Because my first step always is don't show up with HR metrics, show up with metrics that matter to the business. I think you'd agree with that. But let's say their leaders said, hey, bring us a couple and we'll sort of figure out which ones matter most to us. What what sort of metrics would you recommend the audience be using to, again, be more strategic? That's the whole focus of our conversation here.
Yeah, there's always the bread and butter HR metrics, which is going to be, tracking headcount, location, tracking your turnover, tracking the why on around your turnover. Why are these people turning over? Tracking involuntary versus voluntary turnover separately with different, very comprehensive reasons, incredibly important. Those are all kind of bread and butter. For me, where I really get value is in time to productivity. It's because you have to define what productivity means across your business, which is incredibly important to performance management. It's all leading, right? It all becomes something really, really grand, right? And for me, that is like, if you're branching out from your classic people KPIs, like the bread and butter, that's the one that I would go to, because it has so much impact on performance for your organization, and it shows where you may have gaps in your onboarding process, in your leadership capability, in the organization in general. It'll also show where you've optimized processes, workflow, and knowledge base in your organization, and it's a leading indicator for a lot across your business. So, and it does take some time to put together, but that's the first one that I would go to.
So I'll double down on that. We just finished a big study on becoming a more data-driven HR function. And we asked, what do your senior leaders expect as return on investment in HR across your entire spectrum? And it came down to what I'm calling like the bucket of metrics is return on employee. So performance, productivity, retention, do they stick around? Do they do better when they're here? All those things is what they look for first before they start saying, okay, is this affecting customer satisfaction? Is it affecting safety and other things that also matter to the business? Like, is it bringing more value from each person we have on staff? And I think that aligns so well with some of the other things that you've shared today. So this has been so good. Like, I'll put you on the spot, like 1 minute, like last takeaway here. You can double down on something you've shared. You can give them something else. Like, just as we're walking out of this session and we're thinking about what's to come, how can someone out there put these things in place, be more strategic as an HR practitioner and professional?
Certainly. I would say how you start with making your priorities known so that you can align to the business priorities by showing the alignment to your business priorities. That's the very first thing that you do. You don't stop talking about it. You keep bringing it to the table and showing the ROI, and you make that connection in everything that you do, and you will garner additional strategic insight as well as opportunity to add that value to the organization if you continue to do that.
Ever, but it's so relevant, so practical, so important right now, because we started off with like, this is burnout. Maybe it's my fault. I started off on burnout and stress, and it was just let's wrap up with something fun, if you don't mind.
Okay, please.
And off the cuff completely, what is the absolute worst job you ever had? You don't have to call the company name out, but the worst job I would never do it again.
Easily. So I would clean up the excrement for dogs and cats at a vet hospital. And there was certain situations where you would not, like, it was absolute. I don't have a gag reflex as a result.
Nothing gets to you now because you went through that.
No issue at all.
Oh my goodness gracious. I didn't know what to expect there. That's pretty wild. Okay.
Pretty good one.
That's wild. I don't know if I've shared like mine probably was when I was making jail cell door hinges at one job early on.
So good, Ben. That's a good one.
I was so terrified that I was going to see this news story break, like string of breakouts across the country. We traced it back to like, oh gosh, please no. So I worried about that as I was doing that, thinking this is not going to end well, because I'm not good with my hands. As anyone knows me knows that all too well. So thank you so much again for a fun wrap up to that. If someone wants to learn more about iSolve, the good work the team is doing, the good perspectives and thoughts that you're sharing here to lift the community up in a positive way, so they can clearly tell from your conversation today, what are the best ways to do that?
Go to our website. We've got a terrific website that's incredibly informative and easy to use and to reference. It's isolvedhcm.com. Also, come on, grab me on LinkedIn. Right. I'd love to interact with you, love networking. So would be happy to do that as well. And you can find us also on LinkedIn and Twitter and all the all the social apps as well. So we're happy to have you.
Thank you again, Amy. Appreciate you so much for your input, your attitude, all those good things that you bring, your passion. I'm grateful to know you and call you a friend. To everybody else out there, stay tuned for more good summer school coming right up. All right. Bring us back. There we go. Good session with Amy. Golly.
Just by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I am keeping
the data tracker.
What I was able to catch, there was 12 uses of that word. I've always done this on the side, but I feel like, there's a board behind us. We got to make use. It's got to have a whiteboard. You got to have some data on there or some notes.
He's a whiteboard kind of guy. When he saw this morning, he said something's got to be there before we're done here. And so he found his thing very quickly on what could be there on the whiteboard. So great insights from Amy. Really, we've got to know the business if we want to serve the business.
Yeah.
And it's this weird sort of pull of we have to serve the business and serve the people. And occasionally you see this debate break out, like which one's more important? And like, you can't do one without doing the other. Not if you're doing your job right.
Yeah. I think the most important thing is that people are important and the things that impact people matter. And so how does that go into play? Because oftentimes we, as leadership, and I say we from a non-HR perspective, as an operator owner, sometimes we put systems and processes out there to be improvements of the business, but we don't involve the people. And that's where change becomes a frustration for a lot of employees. Change is not frustrating. Change is difficult for people and frustrating for people when they're not involved in those conversations and to just thrust them upon changes. So when we're going through those processes, whether it's using data, whether it's using AI, whether it's using a different system, something strategic, we have to understand how does this impact people? Because at the end of the day, the people are going to have to keep the number one rule of business intact, and the number one rule of business being is to
stay in business. I've learned that from you. Stay in business. There we go.
After that, there are no rules. And so to have a healthy culture, to have healthy people, to have smiling faces and pain, like Amy displayed there, as she's passionately about her professionalism of changing and cleaning, bad environments. I want to say that's what HR does a lot. They clean up a lot of.
I didn't say it to her, but I was like, that felt like a hit too close to home, maybe, that we have to clean up a lot of messes ourselves in day to day. So, all right. So great conversation with Amy. Love and appreciate her. Great start to our day. We're going to roll into Maria Scott. So she is a friend of both of us, actually. Saw her in person a few weeks ago. Great person. Her focus is on helping managers be great managers, which is, I did not plan this. Okay. I talked to Amy after I talked to Maria, but Amy went in the direction of, you know what, you want to do more strategic stuff? Let's get our managers on board helping us. So we're not having to clean up all their messes. Let the managers help participate. And then you can spend more time on those things that matter. It's like, well, that's kind of fun to see this come together because Maria is going to talk about how do we serve those managers? How do we get them on board? So it's a great tie-in here. Let's dive into it. And so she wants to talk about glue, which I think you're going to love. So the glue of connecting managers. You'll have an acronym before we're done. I have no doubt. So let's jump in with Maria Scott.
Stuck on you. You, me, we're stuck like glue.
Summer School family, so glad you're here with us. And I'm excited to bring back to the stage a good friend of mine, Maria Scott. I'm so excited because she's going to talk to us about managers and the role they play in the business. And really the big thing that she wants us to come away with is this concept of glue. And we're going to get into that because she sprung this on me last minute. I don't even know what it means yet. So I'm going to learn with all of you as we're going through today about this glue that managers need. So Maria, welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. It's always a joy to show up to HR Summer School. As you can see, I'm sitting outside Summer Camp 5, so I'm ready to jump in.
Awesome. So before we get into the good stuff, can you take just a quick minute and tell the audience more about you, what you do, and who you are?
Absolutely. So as been mentioned, my name is Maria Scott. I'm an IO psychologist. I'm also a self-proclaimed HR girly who has been supporting the development and performance of people leaders for about 20 years. So my company, Anetic, essentially helps organizations create structure and rhythm around their people leaders. And we just make sure that their behavior is sustainable and can help your company grow and overcome whatever challenges or changes you're facing.
Challenges, changes. I'm loving the alliteration there. Okay. So we're going to get some good stuff. So you dropped something last minute. I knew you were going to talk about managers because that's your strength. That's your area that you love to help enable them to be better so they can serve their people. It's a thing that I appreciate about you is your heart for that. but you sprung this idea of glue on me. So what is this idea of glue? What do managers need? Talk about that piece of it, and let's get in that and unpack it here.
Absolutely. So, yes, I would think managers don't need more training. What they need is glue. And what I mean by that is that they need organizational steadiness. So, a lot of times we train managers, we send them to all these different training things, and then we cross our fingers and we hope and pray that somehow it makes its way back to how they lead their teams. And so, glue just basically means we actually need to institutionalize the behaviors and the practices that we think are super important so that essentially every behavior has a home. And when you do that, managers not only know what to do it, but they know when to do it and how to do it. So think about habits, routines, basically creating structure and culture around your managers.
Okay, so it's not just training, which
Not
is
just training.
for everything, right? Everyone's like, oh, that manager can't do that. They should be trained. You're like, yeah, it's a motivation thing. Maybe it's something else. Maybe they haven't built that muscle yet. I don't know. So there's lots of components around that. So let's start going through this in a practical sense, if you don't mind. So give us some examples of what that looks like day to day. How can we start giving them some glue? How are we going to do this, Maria? Like, how are we going to provide this glue to them so they get that going?
So glue looks like, very simply, what happens when. It's how you build a habit or routine. So I'll tell you, when I joined a hospital once, and in my very first meeting, I noticed that every single person, we started the meeting by talking about people. And in that, we talked about recognition, and everybody had a recognition coupon to give somebody else for something that they did. So I want to recognize you, Ben, because last helped me with this presentation, or I want to help recognize you, George, because you gave me great advice on something. So the next week, what do you think I did?
The next week, what did you do? You probably were looking for.
We were in that meeting. What do you think I did?
Oh my goodness gracious! You gave the recognition the week before. The next week, what are you doing?
I did that, right? I had my recognition coupons ready to give the next week,
because that's a cycle you're expecting. You're building that in.
There
Have
you
we
go.
talked about this before? Have we
A
had
little
this
bit.
conversation? Okay.
Yeah, maybe. He's like, have we talked about this with?
I was like, this idea that I used to have managers who are like, I'm not good at it, so I just won't do it. I'm like, that's not a reason not to do it. You should start. And like, well, how do I start? Put it on your calendar, Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Well, that feels kind of, mechanical. That doesn't feel like it's a real heartfelt. Like, I know. But once you get in the habit of it, you'll start looking for the moments. And it'll be a Friday at 9 a.m. and you'll say, it's not Tuesday, but hey, Maria, I saw this thing. I just want to tell you that was really great. Well done on that. Yes. And so you'll build that habit, that muscle, as you're saying, the glue piece, not just I'm waiting for Tuesday at 2 p.m. That'll let you know what I saw.
Well, the glue means don't just teach them how to recognize, but basically say, park that behavior here. So I knew to park that recognition behavior in our calls. And then to your point, I also started looking for other places to park that behavior. So let's use another example. Let's say that you would like for managers to use upward feedback, or you would like for them to align their teams. So I recommend a quarterly conversation every single quarter, a very simple grid that says, what did you like? What should we change? What ideas do you have? What really should we be celebrating? Every quarter, the expectation of that conversation, followed by putting that into some sort of a stoplight report, creates a rhythm or habit that every manager now knows. Once a quarter, I just need to align my managers. I need to align my team.
Would you give us those again, please? I was trying to write them down and I missed it. It's like, what did you like? What should we change? What were the other ones?
So what are the wins that we should celebrate from the last quarter? What should we change from the last quarter? What ideas do you have? What questions do you have about our deliverables or process? Those 4 questions once a quarter can keep a team in alignment. So we expect managers to know intuitively that they should be doing this, but the honest truth is most of them don't. And so when we get really specific about, hey, once a quarter, have this conversation, and then here's a stoplight report. What you hear from that meeting, put it on this stoplight report. Green means I love it, it's a go. Yellow means maybe I need more information or it's in progress. Red means no, and here's why. And those 2 behaviors create a rhythm. Every quarter, have the conversation, update your report so that people can see that their actions or their comments have been responded to. That simple thing is a rhythm, and that's what creates glue.
Can I confess something to you?
You can.
I wore this shirt today for this session. Okay. Because one of the things that it's easy for us to do in the world of HR is to feel like the managers are like against us, because sometimes they do things that feel like they're against us, right? It could harder work for us. But I wore this shirt because it says family is everything, and managers are part of that family, that we are taking care of the workforce, and we can't do it ourselves. They can't do it themselves.
Yeah.
We've got to work together and partner there. As I'm listening to you talk about some of these things, these like check-ins, that those pieces, I'm thinking about how we do that even as a family, like aligning on, hey, where are we going to go next, spring break? Are we planning for that? Are we getting stuff aligned? Oh, we've got to figure this stuff out week to week, day to day.
Yeah.
And so like that sort of thing, I'm thinking about those alignment pieces happen in our life. And I don't know why anyone would assume that would happen and things would work well at work if we weren't doing those same sorts of things there.
Yeah. Well, and I think too that people think that it's intuitive, right? And I think like, so for me, it's intuitive because I'm also a trainer. I'm also like, so these things come intuitive, but for the average everyday manager, we say, keep your team in alignment, but then we don't necessarily, what does that really mean to them? And so by giving them a little bit of structure and a little bit of guidance and a little bit of expectation, where does that actually live? Where does that behavior live? Now we're taking the guesswork out of being great for them, because they know, hey, once a quarter, I'm going to have this conversation. I'm going to do this thing. And they can do modify if they want to. If they want to, ask for other different questions, they can. But we're building the habit and routine and the stickiness and the cultural alignment that people need. And so how you reinforce this is that if I'm a manager's manager, I might say, oh my goodness, have you had your quarterly, alignment conversation or check-in or whatever you want to call it with your team? Was there anything that they really loved that you want me to reinforce with them? Were there any questions that they had that you couldn't answer that I can help you with? So by creating that glue, that rhythm, that habit, you're also creating the opportunity for the manager above them to support them better, because now we know what should be happening and we know to check in, say hello, what challenge did you have? How can I support you? So not only are we giving them the expectation, we're now also giving them the support.
So you've given a couple examples already. I want to ask you for one more, if you don't mind. I want to think about a specific point in time. So I'm a manager. I brought someone new onto the team. What we see in our data, this is going to freak people out, but we see in our data that 2 out of 3 workers say, I know if I'm going to stay at this company or not after I start within the first 5 days on the job. So that's like a quick decision turnaround. Anything we can do to help managers in those early days start building inroads, building connection, to really help that person feel like they're in a place they belong, they made the right decision, so they're not second guessing, oh gosh, I said yes to this offer and I should say yes to the other company. I don't want them thinking that in the first week. So we've got to really do something immediately to do that. And again, all of us in HR and recruiting, we don't have the time to do that for every new hire necessarily. So anything we can do to help the managers start building that connection from day one or even prior to that.
Yeah, so I think a simple onboarding rhythm helps with that as well. And so it could be, hey, make sure that by day 5, you've asked them these personal questions like, from what you've seen, is there any great things from your last job that you can bring here? You have a fresh set of
I like it.
right? You have a fresh set of eyes. Tell us what's working and what's not working. So just that engaging conversation, but also let me introduce you to 3 people who I think are going to help make your job a lot easier. So by clearly defining what do we want that onboarding experience to look like, and then how do we equip the managers very simply with their 5 questions or their template to basically say, when you have a new employee, first start with getting to know them. So here's some questions you may want to ask them, because they probably do come with really good ideas from their last job. And they probably see what we don't see because we've been here long enough. But 2, everybody needs a buddy. So let's make sure that there are 3 people that you can say, hey, if you get stuck, go to these 3 things, these 3 people for these 3 things. And then also, here's our next divine check-in, or my favorite thing is, here's a red cone for you. The red cone basically means if you get stuck, you raise this cone, this flag, and someone will come running. And those are 3 simple things that you can build habit and rhythm around. And again, if you're that manager's manager, you might say, hey, How is so and so doing? Did she raise a red flag? Or, what did she share with you from her last organization that we might be able to use here? And then also take those things that you heard and put them on your stoplight report so that they can know that, you know what, wow, my manager's responsive. She's listening to me right away. This is a wonderful tool. So building the structure of what you think it could look like, test it with managers, see what works, and then let them bring it to life in their own way.
I think that's a part that's hard sometimes is we want to script this out, and some managers are like, well, that's not really my style, or that's not how I interact with people, or that doesn't feel authentic enough for me. I want to go deeper than that, right? There's a whole spectrum there. So I love let them make it their own. Once you've given them some tools to work with, say, okay, now that you know the structure, at least what we're looking for, you said it earlier, what happens when, right? What happens when this person's connected? Now you find the way that works best for you to make sure they're connected. You find the way that works best for you and that person to make sure they feel like they're in the know. These connection conversations you're talking about, like that are happening on a regular basis. So those are some great tidbits and suggestions. I want to take it for a second to the extreme, because we all know that one of the biggest barriers to doing something like this is, well, we're doing something, we don't have time, we're too busy with whatever else. And so talk about what happens without this. We don't do this. You did a great talk recently on the Wild West of, what it looks like when things just don't have any structure to it. Give us some insight into what that looks like, what that feels like, and the negatives if we don't take some action here.
Yeah. So, the same thing is, I think people already know the negatives, which is basically when you have managers who are unstructured and unguided, it does turn to the Wild Wild West. And that just basically means, one, everyone is doing whatever they feel like is the right thing to do. And you are basically leaving the best managers are the ones who figure it out, right? So whatever team experience is directly leveraged to how well that their manager can fight through the chaos, figure it out, and find their way. But why are we leaving that to chance? The other part of that is the Wild Wild West becomes uncorrallable because there's only so many of us in HR. And now we're trying to corral all these managers who are doing all these different things, honestly, with all these different expectations. So it makes our job a lot harder in HR, and we're firefighting what's happening because we never had clear expectations around what was supposed to happen. We never said, what does good look like? And we didn't point people in that direction. So you have variation of good, but you don't have a clear criteria. So it's even hard to say who's a good manager and who's not a good manager. Without a little bit of structure and expectation about what it's supposed to look like, you can't figure out who's doing what. And there's no barometer for saying Ben is a good manager and Kamaria is not. So you have a variance of experiences. And as our good friends at Gallup tell us, the manager experience drives so much team member experience.
I had a thought as you're sharing that, and tell me if this makes sense or if it's totally wacky.
I saw the bubble go up.
Okay, you saw the light bulb. I have a terrible poker face, so when I have an idea, it just immediately comes out. I'm listening to you talk about this, and like we think of managers as good managers or bad managers. But like if you said, hey, listen, micromanagement, we can all point to that. Like we know that's not good. We know that's a bad practice to exhibit and so on. But good managers aren't created just by not doing the bad stuff. Right? Good is not an absence of bad. Good is doing something else. And if we don't cast that vision, as you're saying, then they're never going to get there. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does, Ben. You warm my heart. So I think of, the other day I had a realization about myself because people always say, Maria, you're a perfectionist. And I was like, no, I'm not. What I do is strive for mastery, right? And I think of people leading in the way that it is something that you learn to master, but in learning to master, you have to acknowledge that it's a progression. So I quote you all the time. I'm always like, my friend Ben Eubank says we all suck in the beginning. And it's true, right? But if you think of it like something you can master, that means you go from yikes to okay, to good, to great, to excellent. It's a gradient of an experience, and you can learn and develop and become an excellent people leader. But you can do it faster if there are guardrails and there's guidance and you're not just, flailing through the wind. There's two things that always jump out at me. One is that I did a wonderful podcast episode with a guest who was talking about being in the development zone versus being in the performance zone. And from day one, it's very stressful to have to be in the performance zone when you haven't been in the development zone. So expecting for a people leader to take over a team, become a manager, and immediately hit the performance zone, it's kind of crazy. when they need their development zone. And that's what's getting them from yikes, we all suck in the beginning, to mastery. It's the constant development over time that helps us then say this works and that doesn't work. And so when we think about building in the habits and routines and the guidance, it at least gives them the opportunity to try it, right? We give them, if you can't do anything else, do these 3 things. And from there, they can self-reflect on, okay, how do I make this better? How do I make mine? How do I make this right for my team? And that's how that progression happens.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So I want you to, I'll make a note here to get the link to that episode at least, because I think that's a great takeaway here for people to follow up later on, not during summer school. Okay. Hang on till you're done for the
Go
day.
later.
But that'll be a good thing to think through later on about how to help those people be in that performance zone by coming from the development zone, and some good ideas there on that one. So I'll make sure and link to that episode for sure. You'll get that one to me. But anything else for the audience here, if they want to connect with you, they want to learn more about the good work that you're doing, Kamaria, what's the best way for them to follow you?
Yes. So obviously follow me here on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with you. I also, you can find me at Kamaria at Enetic, ENETICLPS.com if you'd like to send me an email. And then I also invite you to visit me at managermomentum.com. You will find some tools and resources that will help you with setting up rhythms. And there's also a rhythm toolkit. So if you want to find your first 3 rhythms, it's actually a document there that will help you put the first 3 into place.
Maria is going to take over Elmer's as the primary provider of glue for the country. So there you go. Like, that's going to be a good place to be. So glad to be here with you, my friend. Appreciate you for sharing your insights here with the audience. And it's always, I learn something every single time. I enjoyed this so much. To everybody else out there, I hope you got some great takeaways around how to create this structure around your managers, not to hold them down, but to allow them to really serve and support their people. Stay tuned for more Good Summer School coming right up. All right. I'm figuring out all the buttons behind the scenes over here. Hey, everybody.
Ben's pushing buttons. What's new?
You know what? So I need you to, I can't even see that back there. So I added George breaks into song, and I've got my own tally over there just to fight back and be fair and balanced over here. So
you got to fight for your rights.
You got a backup
back
over
back
here. Goodness gracious. So good conversation there with Kamaria. Great insights. Again, I told you you'd love her. She's been a summer school speaker before, and I was so glad to bring her back again because I always learn something sharing from her. And I want to clarify one of the things that she quoted me. She's like, "Yeah, Ben says you always suck at the beginning." I'm like, that sounded mean. That doesn't sound very nice. What I was actually on Kamaria's podcast, Manager to Manager, at one time, and I dropped that in the chat a minute ago. That link to that episode, but. She was talking about it, and I said, listen, when I was a first-time manager, I was bad at it. I think most of us were bad at it, and we learned how to be good at it over time. So that was where that came from. It wasn't everyone's terrible blanket statement. It was very specific to that. So Kamaria, don't be careful when you're quoting me that you give context. I don't want to seem like the bad guy.
Bad, you're bad, you know it. Okay. Those songs are just going to be popping in my head every time.
Now it's annoying.
That's two marks on the board for me.
Nonstop. You're just going to mess with me. I know it. All right. Anything else? I'm going to get the next one queued up.
I think some of the things that really stuck out towards the end there, obviously, is so often we feel like we have to be perfect in everything that we do, everything that we say, and unfortunately, we're human, which means we're not perfect. But how do we master what we do? How do we become great at what we do? I know a struggle for me, Ben, was that I always wanted to be a part of everything, and I just wanted to be good at everything. And I remember my mentor came to me and said, George, it's great that you're going to live a life that's just good at a bunch of little things, but what if you can master something and be great at that one thing? And I'm still trying to figure out what it is, because it's definitely not singing, because I got a voice of an angel, but the angel has died.
No.
But I've mastered, championing my own purpose and figuring out what that is in my life. And I love championing people. Yes. And so being able to lead and champion others is something that I'm very passionate about. And so finding your mastery is so important in a world that everything says that you have to be perfect. Social media looks like it's so perfect. I wish more business leaders and leaders in general would just show how many times we failed and messed up, because the reality is that we messed up more. We struck out, just like a baseball player has struck, Babe Ruth struck out more than he has hit home runs. Michael Jordan has missed more shots than he ever made. And so in life, we got to understand we're going to miss more than we make, but we have to celebrate both. Because we haven't stopped.
Oh, goodness. I want to go into like 3 other stories, but we got to keep the time. I want to tell you.
Stay on time.
I want to tell you about rejection therapy. It was a great book. Okay, book titles. That might be my other thing. We're gonna keep track of because I recommend a lot of books every single year. It's a nerd's job. All right, so you talk about mastery, being good at one thing. So we actually have Alicia Jones here with us. She's going to be talking about how to be an incredible HR business partner. We're going to talk about that specific part of our bigger role in HR and what it takes to do that really well. She's got some great insights. It marries up well with what we heard from Amy earlier about aligning with the business, but Amy was talking high level strategy. Alicia's going to talk about in your day-to-day tasks and work, how you align those. And so she was actually recently a guest on the podcast. Superstar, super smart, love her. And so let's jump in with Alicia Jones and hear about HR business partners and how to be a great one. And welcome to another session here at Summer School. I'm here with Alicia Jones, and we're talking about the role of the HR business partner, how to do that well. And I was thinking about the overall Summer School agenda this year. I thought we need to get deep in the weeds of this and talk about what it takes to be great at that, how to win at being an HR business partner. So no pressure, Alicia, but I mean, that's what they're all here to see. So welcome. Glad you're here with us.
Thanks for having me. We are in it to win it today for sure.
There we go. So before we get into some of the fun stuff around being an HR business partner, the roles of that, the opportunities we have, challenges, all the good stuff, would you take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, everyone, and welcome. My name is Alicia Jones. I am a senior strategic HR business partner for a large global medical device company that's a portfolio type company. I have been in and out of HR and leadership roles my whole career, and I have had the privilege of being able to work in organizations where I've seen the entire life cycle of a business. I have been part of a greenfield startup. I have closed companies. And I have done all the little bits in between, the divestitures, the mergers, the acquisitions, the business pivots, and all the fun people things that come along with that.
Goodness. Yeah, that's the thing. It's something we forget that the stage a company's in affects a lot of the flavor of the people challenges that come up sometimes, where it's like we're a startup where everybody's running breakneck speed. Like the challenges you have there are a little different than a company that's winding down, or even one who's just, hey, listen, we're continuing to grow 3% every year, whatever the number is, like something steady state over long term.
Absolutely. We talked about this on the podcast as well, that context matters so much, not just the context of your business and your industry and your team, but the context of that maturity, that life cycle of your employees and your leaders, but also the business itself and how important that is to the HR role and how we contribute to that business.
All right. So of all the different parts of HR that someone could be doing out there, some people are listening into this and they are a dedicated HRBP. Hats off to all of you. Others are wearing that as one of many hats that they're trying to juggle. They're finishing an investigation today. They're opening a job requisition tomorrow, all those other things. They're trying to get a wide flavor of audience members, we'll call it that, here today. So I'm hoping we can dive into some of the things that when they're thinking about or doing the work of an HR business partner, that they're doing that really well. So if you were to say, hey, listen, if you get nothing else from today's conversation, here's the 1 or 2 things I think are critical to do that well, what would you share?
Yeah, and hats off to those armies of one. I have been there myself, and I understand and honor that work that you're doing and that diversity you have to cover. We have a broad scope. And no matter your role, whether you're a specialist, a generalist, in a leadership role, I think the most important piece to contributing from our role into the business is to understand that you're a business leader first. Start there. Always start with understanding, again, that context of your business. How does the business make money? What are those goals, the risks, the strategies, all of those pieces that will help you drive whatever piece of the business that you're in a much more productive way and really meaningful and impactful to help take that business where it needs to go from their people strategy perspective.
Number one, give it this later first. If you're in a bigger company, that seems like this may be completely false, so correct me, but it feels like it may be easier because you've got leadership visibility in the news, there's earnings calls, there's all kinds of different things that you can use as signals for what might be important to the business and how you fit into that. In a smaller company, it's like, what is Joe thinking over there? Because I don't know what's going on in his head and I've got to figure that out. That may or may not be true, but talk about that a little bit, about how you get that awareness of it, because it's It's one thing to say you have to know these things to be great. And some people heard you say that and like, thanks, Alicia. Now I've got more work to do. How do I know those things?
Yeah, and it's again back to the context piece. I've been in organizations with 12 people. I've been in organizations with 20,000 people, and it is really different in how you get information and how you do that. And from our seat, I actually think we're really uniquely positioned for this because HR tends to not be captured in some of the silos that you'll see sometimes in business, right? In either an operational role or a role that kind of gets a little bit in their chain and they get very focused on what's happening in their piece of the world. And in HR, we can see across the functions and often. And I think that's where our ability to build those relationships come into play, because the more that you understand both internally and externally the dynamics of that business, the better you're going to be. But a lot of that comes from those relationships, understanding this business leader and what are their specific goals and challenges, right? And then if you are leading across, you're not a specialist, but maybe a generalist, and you have a broader scope, then you can get a better view of how does it all fit together to find out where are the areas we can harmonize and maybe standardize for efficiency and make our people strategy more effective, but also then where we may have targeted specialty needs to serve. And that's an important piece, because we're also very likely, at least I haven't found a role yet where we have unlimited resources and money. If you find that, call me, because I have lots of fun ideas. Yeah, let me know. But we're all going to have limitations, right? Time, money, and even the capacity for the business to accept people change, right? There's going to be limitations. So if you understand the most impactful need that you can serve and make a meaningful contribution to, you're going to drive more value for that business overall.
So you used a phrase there, or a term, you said harmonize. And that's when we're both kind of in sync. We know what they're trying to do. They know what we're trying to do. And we're both sort of marching in the right direction together. I feel like that's a really powerful visual for that, to make sure that people hear this happening. It's just not just them telling us what to do. This is not just us saying, well, this is what HR does, take it or leave it. But how do we make sure that we're connected there? I think that's a really interesting picture to paint. One of the things I want to ask you is our theme today, actually, and for the overall event, is moving from reactive to proactive. And a lot of what an HR business partner does is react to situations and things like that. But there are also opportunities to be more proactive, to step in before when the problem's this big versus when it's this big, and things like that. Do you mind talking for just a moment about the value of being proactive and maybe some areas where someone could think about leaning in versus sitting back, and how that's going to make a difference in their work as an HR business partner?
Absolutely. Yes. And I think there's an element of a role that, yes, it's going to be reactive. There's going to be urgent things that come up, employee needs, whatever it is, that have to be addressed in that moment. It does happen, and we can't always predict that or control that. But in a general sense, the bulk of our work, especially as a business partner, should be just that. And it starts with that understanding the business. When you understand the business and you are showing up as a business leader first, and then helping the business strategize and drive those people pieces, the people plan that will enable that strategy, that to me is the key. So the idea is you want to position yourself that you're a partner where strategy is set, not just you take it, the direction from the leaders of here. Yeah, here's my wish list. Go create all these amazing people programs. Go fix engagement, right? No, it's about, and a lot of that comes through that relationship, but also how you work in that space, your ways of working, right? If you are always reactive and don't come back with a level of courage to challenge those leaders about, what could we have maybe done differently? How could we get in front of this next time? How do we be more proactive in looking at, for example, one of my hot topics is always workforce planning, right? How do we look ahead to the talent skills we're going to need instead of waiting for someone to resign, right? That's if we play in the reactive space, we will continue to build that view that we are reactive, right? So we also have to take those courageous steps to push those strategic agenda pieces to say, we can be proactive here. Here's how we build that plan in context of the business, right? And that's the key for me. That's where I've always seen the success. If you try to do it on your own and try to push something that the business doesn't see needed or they don't have a pain point in, you may have a harder time influencing that, right? But if you've picked up on these business pain points and you say, we can solve that, I have an idea, they tend to be a little more responsive to you if you look at it from their seat first.
You said you may have a harder time. That was so politely put. You're going to fail miserably. Okay. We'll just be very clear, plain spoken. Not going to work. If you're HR trying to drive another program through down someone's throat, it's not going to fly. They may endure it for a little while, but they're not going to support it and believe in it and encourage it for the future. So remember that, everyone out there, that yes, it's got to be a partnership. Now, that's not to say that you can't bring ideas to the table. You were talking about the importance of encourage, Alicia. Bring ideas, bring things, but you can't just show up and say, hey, listen, we think that well-being is the most important thing, so we're going to have a wellness benefit, and they're going to need 4 hours a week to do this wellness thing, and those leaders are going to look at you sideways like something's wrong with you. No. Hey, listen, we are not productive as they can be because people are stressed to the max. This is going to allow them to be more productive, serve more customers, build more products. Oh, suddenly it's a conversation they want to have because it's solving a problem they have. And it's still the same thing, but you're bringing it from their perspective and showing up there with that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Goodness. I'm trying to, in my head, tie these different connections together as the audience is here and as I'm hearing them live here. I'm trying to tie these connections together because you talked about having courage, but to me, having some courage to speak up and to challenge someone or to bring an idea when I'm not sure how they're going to take it, that comes not from a position power, but from relationship power, knowing what you talked about in the very first thing. When they know that you know how the business makes money, where the biggest costs are, what the things are that keep your leaders up at night, when they know you have a foundation for a relationship there, when you were just showing up, only speaking HR, you're just late to the meeting, you're not doing those other sorts of things, then you're just executing. Gives the other part you talked about. Be there for the strategy setting, not just the execution portion. That's what makes this happen. So I'm trying to paint this picture for everybody out there that what Alicia's sharing, you can't say, oh, I like this part and I want to just do that part. No, it all comes together. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. That big picture thinking. I'm a big fan of systems thinking. So if anyone wants to geek out about that with me, reach out on LinkedIn. I'm all about it. But exactly that. You have to understand that leaders piece, but also the business's piece, right? And what are all those strategic elements? We cover a lot. But if we understand where the business is going, we can focus that effort. We can focus those interventions where we know is going to drive the impact. And I want to double back on something you said about the lingo specifically. Yes, another piece of advice I would have is drop the HR lingo. They don't know the acronyms. They don't care, right? Like, let's be honest. Speak their language, not our language. We know it. We understand that foundation. You may use that if you are in a larger team. You may use that internally with your own HR peers and leadership. But when you're presenting to the business, you need to modify that to their language. And that will help you get that buy-in. It'll make it much easier.
It just shows a level of respect for the work that they're doing. And it shows an awareness, I think, on your part of, again, they know that you're going to put that, I think, overall. How do you measure your success as an HR business partner over maybe not just today or this week, but over the long haul, looking back at Alicia's long and storied career, as you mentioned earlier? How would you measure success as an HR business partner?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, I measure it in a couple of different ways, right? I have my own personal goals and KPIs, if you want to call them, but I also look at the business ones that I'm influencing, right? My favorite definition of an HR business partner is that we predict, diagnose, and prescribe actions to improve business performance, right? So again, not talking HR speak, I'm talking business speak. If they have a attrition problem, can I help with a people intervention that will drive more retention, right? And show actual results. And that's one of the pieces that sometimes can be difficult in the people strategies. Some things you can find those quick wins and resolve something immediately. Other times it takes time. It can take years to correct, say, a compensation mismatch within a market, right? There's budgetary constraints to that. That might take several years. So for me, measuring this success comes in a couple of different forms. measuring it myself, competing against myself, as I like to say, but also those real key business indicators. What is important to the business and how have the people programs impacted them positively, right? And if it's long term, those milestones, being able to track it over time. Are we trending in the right way? Those types of things. So really looking at the results at the end of the day. Are we producing the results that the business needs to perform better?
So give me those three one more time. The predict, or the other ones?
It is to predict, diagnose, and prescribe actions to improve business performance.
That's your homework out there, everybody. Write those three down: predict, diagnose, prescribe, and think about a problem that you're seeing aligned with the business that you can bring in a potential people solution to by doing that. So great call outs there. Okay. You are full of knowledge, full of insight, and we're going to see if you're full of something kind of fun in a minute. So I want to ask you, we see the good, the bad, the ugly, all the strange and weird, like all those different situations as HR business partners. We have a front row seat, and we're not just a spectator, we're often a participant in that, trying to make it all go. So talk about, if you don't mind, one of the weirdest or strangest situations you've had to deal with as an HR business partner.
Yeah, I probably have a list for you. And I've joked with previous colleagues about we need to create the HR book. We've even gone as far as chapters of like, here's our war stories. We all have them. I think one of the most unique experiences that I've had, besides the startups and closures and the business life cycle, I did have the experience once of needing to exit my own boss. And that was a very unusual experience. It was one that no one really prepares you for. At least I was not ever trained. And we're used to assisting managers of exiting people or people below us, but exiting up is a little bit different, especially when it's in your direct reporting line. And so this was early in my career, actually. And I'm very thankful for that because it helped me develop the concept of not every exit has to be the walk in the door and here's your box and walk out scenario, right? There's nuances to how you exit. And you can do that by treating people with dignity and respect. That's really important to me, compassion. And this was the first time that I went into a negotiated exit, really, of saying, hey, look, we need to have a professional separation. Let's try to handle this in a professional way. And came up with a process to negotiate how that could actually go where it wouldn't harm the individuals or the business in that interaction, right? This was someone that could have caused some either morale or reputation damage. So we needed to handle it appropriately. So it was an interesting experience. I'm glad that I had it, and certainly helped me develop a little more creative thinking and how we can do these things.
That is wild. I've never had that experience. I don't know that I want that experience, but if I do, I know the person to call to say, hey, give me your tips and your advice on that one. So the good thing about that, I love that you start off with, listen, I had to see this as not as a process or a transaction, but this is a human being ultimately, and I have to treat them as such. You don't know this, but earlier today, we actually had a session in summer school around like the importance of the human in HR, and never, ever forgetting that, because we get focused on the things we're accomplishing and what's on I doubt anyone's goals and performance, OKRs, all that good stuff, as an HR person, have something in there about being a human to other humans. But we feel that, we know that is critical as part of the work we do. So thank you for sharing that. For the other ideas and advice today, if someone wants to connect or follow you on LinkedIn, is that the best way to do it?
Absolutely. Yes. I'm one of the original old school Lion, the LinkedIn open networkers or whatever it was called. I feel like I age myself when I say that. But yeah, I love to connect with people. Feel free to reach out.
Perfect. I'll make sure and drop that into the chat here and then in the comments for everybody to reach out to you, Alicia. Thank you again for joining us, for sharing your insights there. And everyone else out there is now better prepared to do all those pieces of being an HR business partner because of your presence here. So thank you again. To everybody else out there, stay tuned for more HR Summer School coming right up. All right. My screen keeps doing wonky stuff, George. There we go. All right. So I love hearing from Alicia there on some of the ways we can predict, diagnose, prescribe, using those things as a way to connect what the business needs to align there. And again, I have sometimes this idea, because when we're doing these conversations, you remember this thing from another one, it ties together. But as I was listening to that last part where she talked about having to exit her boss, wow, what a crazy story. but she talked about the importance of dignity and respect. And it brought me back around to Caitlin's conversation this morning around the human side of this. Anyone can follow a policy. Anyone can follow a process. I don't know why they don't do it, but anyone can follow those things. But it takes a special person to do that with heart, right? With kindness, with respect, even when it's really hard, even when you're like, I can't believe you did that. We still have to keep that human piece to it. And so I got that from Alicia's.
Yeah, I think it comes down to me. You know how I feel about the M word, manager. Something that if we can create our own book, right, as is mentioned, like we can make our own HR book.
Yes.
One of the things that I would want to be in charge is that managers are not somebody that's over people. Managers are for systems and processes. You manage people. You can't manage people. You can lead people. You got to manage systems and process. You got to lead people. And so when it comes to those challenges, that's where human, right? You manage the system and process. Leading with empathy, leading through authenticity is something that's important. That comes to the people skills.
I'm sorry, you're telling me something so important, so true, and so accurate.
You don't care. You're worried about your shirt changes.
I watched someone notice that I'm wearing the summer school 25 shirt. So be a fire prevention plan, not a fire extinguisher. That be proactive, not reactive, is the focus. So, Marianne, I tagged your name there. We'll make sure and get you into the list for winners later on today because I didn't see any. Someone else might have called that. Sorry if you did. That's the first one I saw. Audience here, what's been your favorite session so far? Have you really resonate with one or another?
Caitlin's paid a lot of people to be here. They better say her name.
Yes.
Outside of Caitlin, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, which
I'm joking.
It's like George saying that I'm his favorite co-host. Like, okay, there's not another co-host here. Come on now.
Caitlin.
All right.
Well, Caitlin has to give him, but the glue.
The
As
glue.
a resigned educator and a former Air Force
the glue.
instructor, that all comes together, and I'm like, wow, I've been hearing this I'm gonna date myself like over 25 years. So when I do an interview, I'm like, your request
Yes.
is no.
Great.
So it makes sense.
Excellent. So Kamaria, someone in the audience as well, saying Kamaria is her favorite too. So she shares some great things on the manager piece. Love that. So some great, again, it's at some points like picking your favorite children. Love all the sessions. Every one of us resonate with one or another, get some ideas from them. So some good ideas coming here. George has actually been over here working behind the scenes to tag a few people who are going to be getting some prizes. So let me get that queued up and make sure we're in the right place for that. Boom. All right. There we go. Yeah, let's share this out. So you pick names. Go for it.
I'll pick names. Go for it.
You did the heavy lifting. So if you are listed here on the screen, the one thing George did not do is tell you what to do about this. So if you email,
give yourself a round of applause.
Yes.
Number one, you won something.
Yes.
Congratulations. We do have some winners here in person that we're going to recognize. We'll do that as well. But shout out to Allison Smart, Esther Zone. I like to butcher names.
I wasn't going to ask you to read the names.
Mr. Demetrius Russell, Ellie O'Keefe, Chris Triplett, Donald Grubb, Carol Sheets, Kimberly G.
Kimberly G. There you go. So if you are one of the winners there, go ahead and email events@lhra.io. So events@lhra.io. We'll make sure and get that onto the slides going forward. He's putting it on live. Look at that live stream. There you go. And Jill will take care of you. We'll make sure and get your info and get those things out to you. We'll actually let you know what the awards are later on too, the prizes and stuff, because we're doing it on the fly, as you can tell. So great set so far. Amazing insights. We have it always goes so fast. We're more than halfway done for day one. So we have.
You remember, my friend, the first year where it was 5 days for 5 crazy hours. It was like all by yourself.
4 hours a day.
All by myself.
I'm behind on my board back there. Yes, that first year, I told someone this morning, I said it was wild, but it was also, everybody was, I don't want to take this the negative direction, but it feels like today people have this level of stress and a burden on them in HR that we haven't felt as strongly as we have since potentially back in 2020. And so that's one reason I feel like we have the attendance this year is like double what it was last year. People are so excited about this, and it's not because of me or you. Maybe it's because of you. It's not
It's
because of me.
not because of me. It's definitely not because of
it's
my
because
singing.
we're getting here together because we know that we need a reminder that the work we're doing matters. So we're here to give you that reminder, to give you a little bit of humor to go with it, all those good things, little song lyrics, no extra charge for that. If he takes his shoe off later to wave it at you, I may just scoot away a little bit. Fair warning. So, hey, we're going to have some fun. All right. We have 2 more sessions today before we wrap up, and we'll do some more giveaways towards the end of the session. So stay chimed in. We appreciate all of you for being plugged in, for being part of the community. And we're excited about this. We ready?
I'm ready for the next one.
All right, let's dive into this. So we're going to hear from Agata over at Zayzoon. They're one of our partners this year, and she's going to talk about recognition, right? And that's like your love language is like talking about how to do this better. And so I was like, when that conversation came up, I said, I've got the person to do this interview, to do this conversation, and it was perfect fit for you. I felt
it was a great conversation, and I gotta say, she's got a cool name. I gotta say,
I got it. Okay. He'll be here all week, people. He'll be here all week. All right, here. Let's jump into this. Let's have some fun. Let's learn from Agata about recognition, how to bring this into what we're doing, and get smarter on that topic.
Hey, I'm so excited as we continue along with these sessions today. See that pun intended? I got a good friend here that's going to be joining us, and I'm very excited. Agata, which is your name, by the way, everybody out there, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and maybe what's a passion of yours that not a lot of people really know?
Okay. Well, I think no one on this webinar would know that I am super passionate about golf, which is relatively new, but everyone at work does. So a little bit about what I do. I've been leading HR functions for a couple of years now, or maybe a decade. I've been in HR for 2 decades. I have 2 degrees in HR, and so you will find that I nerd out on this stuff. But every company I've worked for has told me the same thing. I am the least HR person that they've ever met. And so what I've been fortunate to be doing now is I lead the people and culture function at a company called Zayzoon. We're a financial tech platform, really working in North America with SMBs to create connected workplaces for people like in deskless organizations, and having those employees have greater control around their financial wellness, recognition, confidence, and yeah, we're really excited to be here.
Awesome. You mentioned the word culture, and I'm always interested. How do you define culture at Zayzoon, or even maybe just personally? How do you define that? When I think about it, I always say it's how I feel, believe, and then behave most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. What do you think about culture?
It's funny because I actually trying to get, and this is live, I'm actually trying to get culture removed out of my title because I don't think culture is a single person's job. It is the summation of everyone that is in there and the past decisions that have been made in a company. Culture is always moving. Every time you add someone, anytime someone leaves, whether it's a leave or they've left the organization, anytime you make a radical decision, it is your values and every opportunity or missed opportunity you choose to use those principles. That's culture to me. And in my mind, I always say there's a score you can actually keep, right? Like you're like, our culture quality or our culture concentration is at X, and you can just subjectively make that number. And I use that as, is this decision going to add to the culture or subtract to the culture? So if you're someone that's looking at culture and trying to protect it or evolve it, I always think that's a really good mental game I play with myself.
Yeah. And so when it comes to culture, like one of the culture ads or values that can be there is recognition. I know that's something that you're very passionate about talking about. Why do you think recognition, employee recognition is so important?
Sure. I think the first thing you asked about culture, I think the second question to that would have been, what is engagement, right?
Yeah.
And I promise the engagement question relates to recognition. When you look at engagement, it's the motivation and intrinsic commitment someone has with an organization. And we sometimes look at employee and company relationships as like a balanced or non-balanced power dynamic. Frankly, like a job is a job at the end of the day. Our lives are full of different things. And a company should look at themselves as being fortunate to have an employee stopping there for some period of time to add value to your customers, to the organization in some format. And you want to keep people long enough because it takes a lot of time to train and all those things. So, but what is engagement? How do you get engagement? That's engagement when we talk about is what the company is getting. But when we flip that upside down and say, well, what would need to be true for employees to be engaged? That's where recognition shows up. And I'll talk about what I see as those things. None of this is Agata's made up stuff. There's tons of books. This is a blend of good work from Daniel Pink from back in the day, from Simon Sinek today. But I've kind of tried and tested this. Sorry, trusted this. I also trusted, but tested this.
Tested and trusted.
Trusted and tested, exactly, in my organizations. And people look for things. First of all, employees that join an organization want to do good work. I think that's like the one thing that we forget. People don't join companies to do bad work. And so when someone is struggling, it's around how do you refocus them or get them engaged in a different way. And that's a whole nother webinar. They also want to learn, right, and grow. They want to have the impact is both somewhat for them to learn and grow, but some of it, the impact is about purpose, right? People want to work in companies, they can get behind what they're doing. And they also want to be recognized and rewarded for that hard work. And so when you think about like learning and development, growth, good work could be hard to achieve. Some organizations, good work is you make your pizza on day one and it's good. Some days, like my job sometimes takes months before I can really say I've done good work or I've impacted the purpose in a meaningful way. And so when I look at those things that people look for to feel engaged and committed and have that emotional or a connection to the purpose of the business, recognition and rewards are like the gateway drug to that. Is the easiest of those things to do, and is actually also the one that HR and leaders use the least, even though it's like free, it has no money. Like you could put money behind it, but really good recognition doesn't take a whole whack of effort compared to developing learning development plans. And I'm not saying those are not important. I'm just saying my passion is recognition is the underdog of those things that people look for, and it's the easiest one to attack.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up engagement. I was actually going to follow up with some engagement questions after the recognition, but how we tie it all together, right? A lot of employers desire engaged employees. And as you said, all it takes sometimes is a little recognition, but understanding that Agata's recognition, language may look different than George's recognition language. How do you know, and what does it take? Because when I think about this, I want to do it. I don't want to just do it just to do it, right? I want to do it and do it well. I want to be able to have a strategic plan around that. And so what are some of those critical components? Because when I look at it, we're all different people, different places in our life. And as you said in the beginning, we don't just do something just to mess it up. We want to do things well. We want to work well. So what does it take to do engagement well? What does it take to do this recognition well, to where it's speaking to all people and not just something that we're just thrusting out as a company that says, this is what recognition look like for us. This is what recognition like for the company of individuals.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to spit out a bunch of things and I'll talk about them. But if you're writing notes, this is the time to write notes. One, decentralize this from day one. This should not be a top-down initiative. Two, be clear on the intent. Why do you care about recognition and bringing this into this organization? It may be a catalyst to, drive your concentration of culture up. It may be to reinvigorate some values. It may be to get your customer back at the center of what you do, whatever. Connect it to something. So clear content on why and connect it to values. I highly recommend everyone should know what the SBI model is. It's super simple: situation, behavior, impact. I can give you an example near the end. And transaction, right? Transactional recognition is super important. There is things that people do that you don't see that have such an immense impact if not done well. And think of the high volume face-paced companies like restaurants, gate agents, transit, like they're doing thousands of these things and they have a volume. Don't forget those individuals too. So if you're HR for one, or you're in a company that's 5,000 people, this doesn't have to be perfect. I think this is the one place the program doesn't have to be complicated or perfect, because it will never not work. I think in terms of, now I'll kind of go into each of those. I think peer-to-peer is probably the most important in recognition. That's when you will see the true engagement and the collaboration and the magic happen. you will need your managers and directors and whatever your organization structure to support, maybe at the beginning to get momentum. And they should also receive feedback or recognition. If they've done something great, and it's always beautiful when an employee calls out a manager or cross-functional manager. It's like, it shows that this isn't something that's being used to quote unquote elevate someone, or on the other side, weaponize, right? We don't want anyone to fear recognition as some sort of weaponization. And I think that's where businesses can go. That's why the clear intent on the why is important, because the last thing you want is, if you're in HR or you're a senior leader, you're like, well, last thing I need is the person that has 10 pieces of recognition to come to me and ask for a raise or for a promotion. And so that's not the intent, right? The recognition is really to be recognized for good work. Giving that recognition as soon as it's possible, that's great. And then the values, I think that this tracks where really well when you have that in line with what the company is trying to achieve. Values may not be the right ingredient for you. So if you are faced with a challenge or transformation in your business, you might have to just use that. So connect it to something. So otherwise it'll be, hey, good work there. That was great. Well, that's just literally just a lost opportunity to give someone something really great. And then the SBI model, or at minimum, be specific, right? Make the impact of doing the recognition is so that the person can feel, for it to feel personal and authentic, and really to avoid generic praise, good job, right? And it could be like, I'm just going to make up a name, Monica, hey, I saw you busting tables, and I noticed that you saw customers that didn't have water in their glasses. Without being asked or interrupted, you prioritize our customer, because we care about prioritizing our customer. And the impact is that probably left that set of tables feeling they were seen, taken care of, and that we worked as a team, and probably left a bigger tip than they would have otherwise, right? It's that simple. It's like, I was seen for something that I've done. And yeah, those are the components. I think the one thing that I always think about for every organization is like, just start working, just try anything. You don't have to get it right. The idea here is just get momentum. It will grow. You could track it, you don't have to track it, but it will grow. And yeah, I can talk more about, I'll let you ask me more questions.
I'm just thinking, I'm going back now until 2015 George, 2018 George. I was an okay leader, just okay. But one of the things I learned is that I wanted to invest. I loved every one of my team members. I didn't like the word employees. They were on my team. I didn't like the word family because I don't like to fire my family. I don't even like to hire them, right? And so one of the things I learned, though, was when it came to recognition, people love that praise. And I realized in my leadership that even criticism, in a sense of how you bring it to the table, is something as well. And so I always thought that if praise was affirmation, criticism was investment. And so if praise is affirmation, people want that recognition. How do we then make constructive feed forward? I like to say feed forward instead of feed backwards. But how do we make that construction as an investment? Like, I care about you, even on the mistakes. I celebrated the failures. I wanted people to have risk-taking mindsets. I didn't want them to feel like every time they took a risk that was going to help our business, if it didn't happen well, then it was going to be a negative thing. So I wanted to celebrate the good, bad, and the ugly. How can I make you better so that this can be something we can do together? That was a great risk. I'm going to praise you through all those things. And so for me, I had to get that buy-in from our leaders, our managers, right? My partners, the C-suites, to understand the risk-taking, to be able to know our people. We had a lot of risk takers, and some of our tech nerds, they were not risk takers at all. They just wanted to do a good job and not mess any functions up. I say that because recognition and affirmation really resonates with employees. And I believe that really factors into the growth and the impact that a company can make. How might factors like timing, visibility, the message, how you speak, what you speak, how can that affect, and what's the impact on those things when it comes to recognition with employees?
Yeah. I'll go back actually to your constructive feedback, because you could use the SBI model as well. In fact, I highly recommend it because it makes it clear what the impact of the failure was. And what I always tell people, you were saying, you used a different word, but I always tell people, if you stop getting constructive feedback, that's where you need to be worried, because it's a gift that people keep giving. But if you stop receiving it, that means someone stopped investing in seeing you be your highest potential. And I always ask leaders in really tough times, like, when was the last time you gave feedback? And they're like, oh, like, I stopped. It's okay. Why? Is it because they never received it? Okay. It's like, well, that was the intervention, not 6 months later. And so, yeah, I think the difference with constructive SBI versus praise SBI, oh my God, I'm going to say FBI, is I think what is constructive, depending on the impact, it may need to be pulled aside. Now, depending on your culture, some cultures are actually high, let's celebrate failures. And I've seen those are really cool, because there is some good. Is here was your idea, here was what I appreciated, the effort you put in, and here's what the outcome didn't work out. That's a different type of failure versus a behavioral choice failure. So you'll need to navigate that. Then I already forgot the second part of your question. What was your question? What was your question? Please repeat your question.
How might they factor into timing, visibility, and message effect and its impact?
Yeah. I think quality of the messaging is actually more important than timing. And I know that sounds kind of backwards, but say someone did something really good and you say, good job, you did it immediately, that means nothing. That literally means nothing. You could have just blown air at them and that's it. Where if you come back a day later and say, hey, I wanted to give you feedback, but I didn't have a second yesterday in the moment, but I wanted to just give you that, let you know, I saw you do this thing. This was a situation. Here's what I saw, and here's the impact. And that was really appreciated. And I see you really put an effort and thought, and I really appreciate that. Actually means to that person, not only did it get relatively soon, but that you thought about it, right? So to be in someone's thoughts is like being seen, but for a longer period of time. So quality of the message is far more important. I've sometimes forgotten to give someone feedback for a month, and then I'll be like, oh my goodness, I have it written down. And then I'll be like, let me just give me a second. And it still lights people up. So yes, can you get it as close to possible? Great, because then they know what they've done right and they can repeat that if it's a repeatable situation. But quality of the message is absolutely more important. Visibility, I think that depends on you as a leader, because some leaders are not public praisers, and that's okay. And some employees don't like public praise. I'm the inverse. I rather get private praise, but public criticism, because I would love to be able to understand from other points of view as much of what went wrong so that I can really see the bigger picture and fix it, versus public praise. I quite literally want to roll under a table and hide until it's over. So, but send it to me, have it to me, and whatever. So you'll find your balance, and it doesn't need to be perfect. That's the beauty of this. This is like a zero risk. People are not going to quit and cry over getting public praise. Just find the right, figure it out. It'll work itself out.
If an employer wanted to start strengthening their employee recognition, what are some of the first steps? I want some good takeaways here that they can walk away with.
Yep. The first is, don't start with decentralization. I think the precursor to don't centralize is actually don't micromanage it. So if your company is 100 people, it's going to be easy to know everybody and try to remember, did Johnny Smith get one? Did so-and-so? It doesn't matter. If someone feels like they're not getting recognition, that's a beautiful conversation to be having, which is you didn't earn it, or you're not visible, or whatever it is, right? I think, and that can re-engage engagement. So don't overthink the outcomes, and recognition can feel random, unfair, and worst case scenario biased. Again, if you get clear on your purpose and employees participate, they participate in fixing this. This is us. This is an us event program. This is not a top down, right? So don't micromanagement. It's not just create the trusted environment and psychological safety. I honestly say decentralize it from day one. If people aren't giving recognition, just call them into it. Like, just say, hey, this isn't a punishment, but like, I've noticed that you've never given recognition. I'd really like you to consider like participating. like you are and part of this company, you're an anchor or a cultural beacon, participate. Or you can do it different ways, which is if employee gets recognition or someone received recognition for the first time, it's like you've received recognition. Now it's your turn to give it. So in the next 2 weeks, find someone to give recognition for. There's no way that people can't find that. Yeah, I would say it's gonna take off. And then let managers supplement peer recognition, not own it. So if the manager have seen and observed something, for sure, absolutely have the manager do that. But if you see, managers typically are really good at, they have a high EQ, they kind of understand what's happening in their teams. So if you can see someone being missed, they can participate by their own observations or seek to find some there. So again, this isn't meant to be weaponized to or for or against anybody. This is supposed to be additive and really building that concentration of culture.
And how can our people, all these students out here and alumni is wanting to connect with you and hear more, learn more about you? Where can they connect with you?
Yeah, I am on LinkedIn, literally my name, Agata Zasada. I'm at Zazen. You can follow us there. We post a lot about recognition. Recognition is area of passion of mine. I do have others, but we're really passionate about recognition. And we really think that it makes a huge impact. It's a low lift on HR and managers and employees alike. So it's an opportunity to really help businesses thrive. So yeah, that's where
Awesome.
you can find me.
That's incredible. I appreciate it so much, Agata.
Man, the screen does not want to play with us today. All right. So great insights there. I left Jeff's comment up because that one probably freaked most of us out when he said that, I think. It's not quite as bad. I wrote about a company, George, in the new payroll promise book about the company that debited my bank account with payroll when I turned in my notice because they were mad. So they took the money back, which is
money.
I think there's a word for that. I think it's illegal. So yeah, that was kind of fun.
You should take them to your worst job and make sure the door hinges are locked for good.
Make sure they're tied up. So one of the things when the comment came through talking about how do we share criticism or share a critique in a way that's helpful, the thing that came to me, there was a piece of research done. Let me say data, make you feel good. There was a piece of research done a while back that looked at, can't keep straight. So there was a piece of research that came out that said, okay, they took a group of students and one group, they said, here's your grade. Here's your feedback, essentially. The other group that said, here's your feedback. I know you can do better. Give it another shot. And so the group that got the acknowledgement and the request to do it again, they said, okay, both groups, you're welcome to do this again, turn it back in. And the second group was not only more likely to turn it in again, but likely to get a better grade on the second time around because they've been told, I have high expectations of you, and I'm sure you can do better than this. So the expectations and the assurance, it's not just saying, hey, go fix that, George, but hey, listen, I know you can do this. I've seen you do things that are harder than this. Here's how you should approach that. Go make it happen. So bringing those things together, saying, I believe in you as part of this versus just, wow, that looks hard. Go figure it out. That's a different kind of posture.
Yeah. And one of the comments that I kind of stood out, and I just put this in the chat because the balance of what is appreciation and what is recognition and what does that look like. And it's just George's thoughts, which means that it's absolutely true and right, and your thoughts are wrong. I'm just joking. But what I think about, Ben, when it comes to recognition, I believe recognition is something that is earned. And it's based on us doing something. I recognize you because of an action that you took. When it comes to appreciation, I believe appreciation is something that is given because it's something that I am, right? Appreciation is me as a being, as a human being, is who I am. And so I'm giving you appreciation for being the woman that you are in my life, for being the team member, Jonathan, that you are on our team and the work that you do. And so I recognize you because of what you were doing, and you earned that recognition because you put in the work, you went over and above, you served somebody, you stuck to our core values, and you cared about somebody. But when it comes to appreciation, it's given because it's based on being. And so just to take away from that conversation, Agata was incredible.
Yeah.
What we didn't capture on camera was even great. And so there'll be more conversations to come for sure.
Yes, you're like, that's the fun of some of these is there's a longer bit. We trim it down to fit the agenda. And so some of these, there's extra stuff that'll have to come out later on. Yeah. So, okay. Excellent. Good stuff. So we have one more session today. right? Am I correct?
Time keep on ticking.
Am I correct?
Ticking.
Yes, we're up to Jeff. I've seen Jeff in the chat already. He was the one I gave this great comment a minute ago on, hey, you should just be glad you got a job. Here's your paycheck. Maybe I'll show up next week. Ooh, goodness. Some of you have managers like that in your business right now. Like, you should be just lucky to have a job. And yeah, that's a tough place to be, because we got to educate them on that's not very motivating. It's not very encouraging to tell someone that. So we're going to hear from Jeff. This big theme today and of the overall event is HR has to be more proactive. And I know that you hear me say that and you think that just means more work for us. But in some cases, we're planning ahead. That means less work, less responding to hard stuff, less dealing with something when it's a raging inferno. Dumpster fire came up a couple of times, I think, today in the conversation. Less dumpster fires. I want to put it out when it's a little trash can fire. I want to take care of it when it's small. So we're going to get into this. I'm so excited to hear from Jeff. It's going to be a fun conversation. And I need to stop talking and actually do the stuff to get this ready to go. All right. Let's hear from Jeff for our last session of the day. We'll wrap up. We'll do some more giveaways. We'll tell you what you can expect tomorrow. And fun stuff ahead. Here we go.
Excited about this conversation. I want to introduce everybody. If you don't know him, he's been a part of the chat. He's been a part of HR Summer School before. And this year, Jeff, you're here with us, man, and you have so much wisdom. I'm excited. We've been on a couple of cruise conferences together, and so we've had some good conversations there as well. But if you don't mind, Jeff, just kind of introducing yourself, who you are, what you do, where you're going.
You bet. Well, first of all, I'm excited about this as well. Yeah, the last time I saw you was actually on a cruise ship, but as we'll agree to, George, everything that happened on that cruise ship stays on that cruise ship. So that's the general rule. But again, I'm really happy to be here. I love the work that you and Ben are doing. So my name is Jeff Palkowski. I'm actually from Wisconsin. And last time I saw you, I was 10 days away from retirement for my day job. So I'm actually a recently retired HR professional, recovering, if you will. But I'm filling that time by doing a lot of volunteer work still in the HR space. And I'm currently serving as the state director for Wisconsin State Council SHRM. And I'm actually busier now than I was in my day job, believe it or not. I still love HR, but now it's a matter of doing what's my passion versus what was told to do. So it's been an exciting time. And again, I'm happy to chat with you today.
Awesome. Well, I want to dive right into this because there's a lot of things that I love that you do, a lot of these conversations that you're having on proactive versus reactive. And so I want to dive into this proactive problem solving with the start of a post that you made that really got Ben's ears buzzing, got me buzzing about this. But you made a quote, and I want you to speak on this and what it means to you. And we'll just start this conversation off with this quote. You made a post that said, "I'm just an HR pro on a quest to prove that HR can be more than a fire extinguisher." Speak on that, what it means and why you're so passionate about it.
Well, it's been amazing how that phrase, and it started with a blog maybe 3 years ago, and it's taken off since then. As you mentioned, I talked about it with Ben on his podcast and several others as well. Really where it came from is, and you and I have both heard this, how many times do you ask someone, hey, what do you do, or what's going on? I'm putting out fires. That's the common response. Well, what does that really mean? And it really means I'm reacting to the problem of the day, or basically I'm waiting by that phone for that next issue that an employee is going to bring up. And I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, that's part of HR. That's part of what we do. It's kind of part of what we sign up for. But really, we're more than a fire extinguisher. And so what I did was actually, I thought I could learn a lot about myself and as HR in general by looking at a fire extinguisher. And I'm like, okay, what is the fire extinguisher and what can I learn about it? And so there were 5 things that I looked at as far as characteristics, and looked at how we can be more proactive as HR professionals by learning from that. So number 1, a fire extinguisher is visible. I mean, if you need it, chances are you know where it is. It's in that big box. It's red. It's like you know where it is. Same thing with HR. We need to be visible to our employees. People know where we are. But it's one thing to be visible, but the second thing is you need to be accessible. I mean, it's just like that fire extinguisher. If you get to that case and it's locked, it doesn't help you very much, right? Just like reaching out to HR, they don't answer. If they're not responsive, they're not accessible, they're not helpful. So again, it's another way to be proactive and to be there for your employees. The third thing is you want that fire extinguisher to be reliable. Again, your stove is on fire. You want to put that thing out. You want to make sure that every time you grab it, it's going to put that fire out. And people have that same expectations about HR, that when they reach out to us, chances are they're not reaching out to us to say, hey, how's your day going? It's like, I'm I didn't get paid. It's something urgent, and they want a reliable response. And the best way to lose credibility, lose trust is to not be reliable or consistent. So that's the third area. Number four, a fire extinguisher is purposeful. And what I mean by that is if you've got a small kitchen fire or something, yeah, that fire extinguisher will work great. You got a California wildfire or something, you might as well just throw it away. It's like you can't do everything. And that's the same with HR. We try to be all things to all people. And we're normally that first call, but we can't do everything. And we have to realize where our lanes are and when we need professional help. Maybe it's an employment attorney, another professional. So just knowing what our role is so we can be effective. And finally, probably the most important and the one that I think I and many others forget to do is many fire extinguishers, they have like a date on them and they're rechargeable. So it's like they're good till this date. Well, in HR, how often are we recharging ourselves? We're spending so much time helping everyone else, solving their problems that oftentimes we forget sometimes. HR, we're employees as well. And sometimes we're the last ones to remember that. And so I just think it's so important to recharge when you need to so we can be more effective. So again, a simple concept of looking at a fire extinguisher, and I never realized how much I could learn just from that, making that comparison. And that's kind of where things went.
Man, that's so much there. I'm like, just on the fact alone, I just want to stay on this last part, right? Because
Yeah.
we talk about this. One of the things that we do here at HR Sermon Schools, we want to inspire people. And that constant reminder, right? I always say when I speak into this space is that I love HR professions because they're literally torn between two lovers, right? C-suite and people think they do too much for the employees think they're all just for the company. And here they are, an employee themselves. And so we have to really, as you say, check in with ourselves. And make sure that we're ready and prepared and functional when we're needed. That is so true. So I appreciate you sharing that, Jeff, with us today because that's so crucial.
Well, that's an
talk about
excellent
this.
point. Like you said, HR summer school. I mean, when I attended last year, I left that recharged. It was just the chat that was going on, hearing from the speakers and being able to do that. Meanwhile, in the back of my mind, I'm like watching my email box kind of fill up like that. But it's like it's being intentional, and I think that's what you have to do to recharge. It's like I need to put that on hold. It will be there when I get back, but then do things like HR summer school or other things that will recharge you. And everyone's different. Sometimes it's taking a walk over the lunch hour recharges you, but whatever that is, learn what it is. And again, I think it's important just to be intentional. And if you need to put it on your calendar, put it on your calendar.
Yeah. Check in with yourself so you don't have to check out eventually.
Exactly.
Yeah. When it comes to a lot of these ideas, Jeff, especially the proactive, reactive, I think about things that are needed in that scope, especially with HR leaders, with employees. And it comes around for me, I think of two things, trust and resilience. Because we talk about uncertainty and we've all experienced that, right? In life, it comes, it goes. We can talk about change, but in moments of uncertainty and change, what are some strategies that can help HR pros and leaders use to really strengthen trust and build resiliency among employees when it comes to how we move and what we're doing in this change and being proactive?
Well, I'll separate the two because they're both important, but I'll start off with trust because I think of every new HR role that I stepped into, trust was the number one thing I needed to build. And I'll just think of my most recent role. I stepped into a situation where maybe the best HR service wasn't there, and I felt that every new interaction I had, I felt like I had to build trust with that employee or that manager. And literally, it took probably a year and a half to where I felt, okay, now I think I feel trusted. And I think that's the number one thing. Because again, our employees, our managers, our C-suite, everybody depends on human resources for a different reason. And it's a matter of building that trust. And I think the only way I think you can build a trust is to have the interactions, have open communication, prove your worth. And I think that's a big part of it. So once you have the trust, to me, that's the foundation that everything else is built on. Now, the resiliency, yeah, I mean, that's a tough one because again, we want to be proactive, but we're also so reactive to the things that are beyond our control. Some of them are internal, things that are going on that are unexpected, but a lot of them are external. I mean, let's just think back 5 years. I mean, how many of you had worldwide pandemic on your bingo card? I know I didn't, and that upended everyone's world, but really HR, it was that time where people were looking to HR to step up like, how do we manage this? How do we manage a remote workforce? How do we manage leave time, all of this? And it was a time where, yeah, resiliency was needed. Otherwise, we weren't going to be effective. So a big part of it is just getting back to what we talked to, it's like, first of all, I need to make sure I'm taking care of myself first. And I think back of that time post-pandemic where, yeah, there were days where I felt exhausted. And again, working at home was a whole new environment, but now all of a sudden you're not leaving the workplace and your 8-hour day now became a 12-hour day. And I tell you, resiliency was touch and go on some of those days. So really it's just a matter of sitting back, taking a breath, understanding what your limitations are as well and how much you can give, because you can only give so much. And I think you have to realize where that breaking point is. So again, I think for each individual, it's as you're helping others, always remember to, as you put it, check in on yourself as well. And I think that's a big part of resiliency, is understanding where those points are. So as you feel like you're getting to that breaking point, that you take that step back and do what you need to, whether it's to recharge or refocus. And again, a lot of it is the unexpected. I mean, I just think about this last year, things that I hadn't planned for, reductions in force, or I unfortunately had a situation, we had a number of employee deaths, and that impacts your workforce in so many different ways. I mean, both internally, dealing with the families, dealing with your employees that are grieving. Again, things that you hope to be prepared for, but again, you never know when they're going to come. So that is a situation where, yes, I need to react. I need to be resilient. I need to be there for my employees.
Yeah. Yeah. So you brought up the bingo card with the pandemic, and it made me think, what are some ways that we can identify early signs of disengagement, and whether it's well-being concerns, or what steps
Sure.
effectively as leaders where we're trying to identify some of these early signs of that?
Well, and some of them are pretty obvious. And again, probably the one I'm most guilty of is the physical signs. I mean, when you're just not feeling, you're having that same migraine headache every day, or you're losing sleep. I mean, so a lot of it is, I think, just checking on yourself physically. And again, it may be work related, it may not. But again, it's obviously that should be number one. I mean, your health should be number one, to make sure that you're taking care of yourself in that way. But then there's other signs that can come up as well, as just you're finding maybe interactions aren't going as well as they have in the past. Maybe your communication has changed. You're being shorter. You're having less patience and things like that. So I think that's another one that it's hard. Sometimes you're the last person to recognize it. But if you find that all of a sudden employees that you've dealt with before, all of a sudden that those interactions aren't going as well, rather than looking at the employee, I would first take a look at yourself, and chances are maybe you're approaching things differently. Maybe you're not being as empathetic as you should be. So, I mean, I think those are just a couple of things that I think you look at. And then certainly feedback. Hopefully you have a good relationship with your supervisor, good relationship with coworkers, and hopefully they may come to you and just say, "Hey, George, are you all right? I mean, I'm noticing something." And it's like, you need to have those people that are watching, and then being there for them as well. And I just think I think having that strong network, whether it's internally or in some cases externally, whoever your network is. And I like to check in on people, like I know people all over the place, and I just like to check, hey, how you doing? And not just fine. I want to hear what the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think having those people on speed dial and available is just another way to make sure that you're all checking in on each other and making sure everything's going well.
Yeah, I think about what it means to have that human-centered leadership, that human-centered culture within the workplace where we understand what it means. And maybe this is something that let's talk about this.
Sure.
What does it mean to put people at the center of an HR strategy, in a sense of how can leaders create processes that really reflect this principle of human-centered leadership, where we understand that the business is the business and it's created to make profit, but in the midst of that profit are the people. And so what does it mean to put people at the center of the HR strategy, and how can we as leaders create that process that reflects that principle? Because when we have that trust, right, that we want to have, people want to know that you're invested in them, that you care about them more than you care about the overall goal of profit. Like, we're taking care of our people.
Well, obviously, that's the million-dollar question. And you can read article upon article, and here's this strategy, here's that strategy. Every organization's different. Every individual is different. I think we have to. So I think if you're going to be people-centric, you need to understand that one size does not fit all. I think that was a T-shirt last year. One size fits one. That's something that I live. It's like, just because something worked with another person and you have a similar situation, that same approach may be totally wrong. So I mean, I think people-centric is, again, The most basic part of it is knowing that if you're sitting across from someone, that's another person. And treating that person, how would you want to be treated, and hopefully better, and knowing that as well. And yes, in HR, you have your list of policies and rules and all these things. And it's, yeah, a robot or AI could just administrate just without any thought of who the person is. But I think we're not that. Hopefully we're better than that. And hopefully we're in HR for that reason, to understand that we're there to be their advocate and understand that a person, again, if they're coming to HR, it's typically because something's going on. It could be in their personal life, it could be in their work life. It's like understanding, listening, certainly active listening, and understanding what that person's going through, and having the patience. Because I think a lot of times we can get very busy in human resources, particularly if you're a department of one. Someone comes in, interrupts your day, and right away you're like, the first instinct might be, well, I want to solve the problem and get them out of here so I can go back to doing what I need to do. And I just think that is the worst approach, because chances are you're not resolving that problem. It may become a bigger problem. This gets back to that preventing fires versus putting them out. And I just think taking the time, and at that moment, that person sitting in front of you, or on the Zoom call, or however you're interacting with, that should be the most important thing at that moment. And everything else should be put aside. And I think so. Being people-centric is really, just by definition, that person or the people should be the center of what you're looking at, whether it's a solution, whatever you're dealing with. And again, you have policies, you have all of these things, but nothing should be so rigid that you're just adhering to a black and white policy and not understanding that there's a person involved with that. And again, easier said than done, because like I said, every situation is going to be different. So a lot of it I found is I don't want to say it's a learned experience, but I think the more that you do it, you get different techniques. Again, I've tended to be a much better listener than maybe I was before I went into HR. I found that it's like I became more effective by actually listening rather than trying to jump at the solution right away. Sometimes it's bad to have silence sometimes and listen and not take your first response and respond. And I want to answer this person right away. A lot of times I'll be, yeah, that's a lot you've shared there. Let me absorb this for a bit. Let me get back to you on that, because sometimes that's a better answer than you've told me this. Off the top of my head, I give you an answer and it might not be the best answer. So again, I think by being people-centric is just understanding it's a human being, they're messy, we're messy, and it's just by having that communication, that's probably the best way to remember that to be people-centric is basically that's should be the most important part of your job. And as I've heard some people say, if the people are not the center of your HR world, then maybe you need to find another profession. I mean, quite frankly.
Yeah. As we wrap up here, these next couple points, I want to recently retired, so I got to ask this question. Knowing everything that you know now, when we're talking about being proactive, knowing everything that you know and your experience, and as now you, in my eyes, you're championing the champions, right? You're championing other pros at this level now, giving them everything that you've received over the years as you continue to learn, right? We're still learning. We learned a lot together the last couple of months. What advice would you give your younger HR self that could be relevant to this audience in terms of being proactive and the benefits of it, and what skills or tools you incorporate? If you were to give us just a glimpse of the HR Bible, if you will, of being proactive and the power that it takes and the skills, what are the things you will go back and say, younger Jeff and HR Summer School audience, these things really help me?
Well, I would say number one, and actually I recently had this conversation. We actually did a student summit here in Wisconsin recently, and
Nice.
talked to a lot of undergraduate students, and yeah, they want that secret sauce, and what is it? And I'll say the same thing I say to everyone, and I say it from experience, because I was in HR. I was a career changer, so I was only in HR for about 20 years, whereas I know others have been much longer and then they retire. So, but 20 years, it took me, I hate to say it took me almost 10 years to realize what was most important, and it was developing that network. That first 10 years, again, I was a career changer. HR was what I wanted to do, but guess what? I tried to do it alone, and I did it alone. And obviously, I had coworkers and things like that, but it took about 10 years until all of a sudden the light was open, and I realized there are people all over this country. There's people all over this world that I can connect with on social media, all these various ways, and they become this vast network. So really the last 10 years of my career, it's like, wow, I run into an issue and I'm like, who do I know about this? George Rogers. I'm gonna text him a message, and it's made my life so much better in that sense, just to be able to have this support network like that. And as we talked about earlier, it's those times where I feel like I'm burned out and not wanting to do this some days. Who can I reach out to? Who's been through something like that? So I tell young people that start early. And like we talk a lot about LinkedIn, and I'm like, LinkedIn shouldn't be the place you go when I want to get a job and you put everything out there and you get your job and then you let it go. And then 5 years later, you're looking for another job. I'll go back to LinkedIn. It's like, no, I'm on social media daily. And it's really, I don't post as some people say I post too much, but I don't think I post that much. I do a lot more watching because I want to see what people and then commenting and supporting and championing for them. So I think that's number one is in my book, build that network, build it early. There's people that I've connected with years ago that all of a sudden they'll come out like when I retired. I mean, people came out of the people that I managed like 20 years ago that I hadn't heard from and wouldn't be able to do that without social media. So again, that's number one. Number two is if you don't like learning, if you don't like learning on a daily basis, again, HR is probably not the right place to be. So I always tell people you need to have that open mind and learn something every day. And again, how do I do that? Again, sometimes it's going out on social media, it's listening to podcasts, it's reading books, it's just being constant learning because I get something from everything that I either listen to or I read. And so again, I encourage young people to do that. They think they get out of school or they get their again, I'm done, I can put the books away. I'm like, no, you're just getting started because laws are changing on a daily basis and policies and everything. And you need to be up on that if you're going to be successful. So that's the other thing as well. Just basically absorb yourself, be a sponge as much as you can. And like to your point, yeah, I'm not working a day-to-day job now, but I'm still learning because I'm trying to be that person that's helping to share, be that Jedi or whatever, sharing with all the people out there and passing on those things. And here, learn from my mistakes. And by doing so, I'm constantly trying to learn new things. And just like the questions you had today, it's made me think back to, yeah, here's some more things that I think I need to think about because I do get asked a lot of questions about, well, I'm just getting started. What's the first thing you would want me to do? And so, yeah, I tell them, just like I shared with you, build your network, learn, and then just I guess the other thing I just say too is be open. I mean, when people say they work in HR, that can mean so many different things to so many different people. And some people are really focused on, I want to work in this specific area of HR. I'm like, well, that's great, but you're limiting yourself in so many ways. Have an open mind because what I found early on, I dabbled in a lot of different areas, and I quickly found I really like this and I don't like this, and and eventually you focus on, and I really ended up with my focus for the most of my career was actually in employee relations because that was that people part of it. And it was doing a lot of the things that most of my other HR coworkers didn't want to do, the performance management, the discipline, and things like that that are messy. But I enjoyed that because that was the most interactive part of HR I felt. So again, I think to be open, leave your options open and basically find your passion. I think once you find your passion, it sounds rose colored, but I'm just like, if you find your passion, your days are so much better and you'll be so much more fulfilled in your role that's what you need to do. Find what you enjoy and just do it best.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, my friend, we can continue to talk over for periods of time. I appreciate your time. Thank you for your time and investment in the HR profession and what you're continuing to do. We're going to throw his information in the chat. You can connect with him on LinkedIn, Facebook. I know he's on Facebook as well, but we'll love to continue that conversation. Jeff, thank you so much, sir.
Yep, and thank you. And thank you to you and Ben for all you do. This is great. I can't wait to see what else we have going here in HR Summer School. I'm really excited about it.
We're excited about it too. If you can't tell. Goodness.
I'm so excited. I just can't.
So goodness gracious, man.
I realize I'm the detention teacher. I'm the teacher for all the class clowns and misunderstood kids. They're not bad. They're just misunderstood.
You know what? That's what one of the comments a minute ago said. Listen, like the job is what you do. It's not who you are, right? Yeah. We're all human. If you mess up something, guess what? That makes you over 5 years old. Okay. That's good. Yes. And sometimes more often than others. So great conversations so far. It's been an incredible first day of HR Summer School. Hard to believe we're already at our time. So in just a moment, we're going to give our sponsors a shout out. We're going to do a couple giveaways. But as I was listening to that session, I actually said it to our studio audience here live in Huntsville, because I said, it's wild because it sounds like Jeff and Caitlin got together to bracket the day, and they were comparing notes on how do we make sure we cover this. They did not do that. Okay. They didn't even know the other one was talking on that topic. And to see those come together, it's reinforces for me community critical, making sure that you're in a good place. You can't serve someone else if your cup is empty. So make sure your cup is full. Do what you've got to do to make that happen. Any other big takeaways for you?
You know, I'm just excited. But every year, I'm here for the chats. I'm here to see all our new people join the chat and realize, you know, one of the best things about this event is the community, that unity aspect, because we're not alone. And there's so many of us out there that are doing the same thing, that are struggling. Some of us have figured out, you know, how to get out of that struggle. But we all are meant to go through the storm. Everybody wants the rose, but we got to be thankful for the thorns. So, you know, it's important that we understand that, you know, we're here together, we're stronger together, we win together, we never lose alone. It's so important. So I'm thrilled for what I know is about to happen tomorrow, and how it builds. And then, you know, I don't look forward to Friday because that's the last day, and other songs start coming to my mind where it's so hard to say goodbye.
I thought you were going, school's out for summer. There we go.
Ben just opened up a song.
There we go. All right. That was the one.
Let's not do that again.
That was the one and only that you get from me. So I hope you enjoyed it, or you were horrified, and either way, you're done. So, all right, let's do our quick shout out. So, again, thank you again to our incredible sponsors. We heard from iSolve today. Amy shared with us how to be strategic in HR. Some great insights there. I got it from Zayzoon and George. Goodness, they were in the playground of recognition, how to use this as a tool to connect with people. Some really great insights there. We threw up the logo here for our friends at Vervic who are hosting us here at our live session. So we appreciate them for making this possible to connect and see some of our amazing HR Summer School students in person here. Tomorrow we'll have to do a quick poll of the audience and see who's freshmen, who's sophomores, and so on down the list. I told someone yesterday we're now in like Harry Potter worlds. We have 5th years and 6th years. We're not in the normal education system anymore. So we've gone beyond that. So congratulations and thank you to our sponsors. Let's go back to our other slide here, and I'll give some things away. So there we go. All right. So our winners here. Now you actually know how to connect with us, how to reach out to us about these. So reach out to Jill at events@lhra.io. The address is there on the screen. If you forget it, take a screenshot. That's easy. And we're going to give away 2 different batches of things today. And we'll be doing this every single day. So we have other stuff to give. Tomorrow we're going to have some fun things, some things that George is actually leading on. I don't want to spoil it for you, but some special things that very exclusive access. We have only a handful of those given away. And so George is going to be giving some of his very valuable time, and other things coming as well. Any closing thoughts before we wrap up the day? Oh, takeaways.
I was afraid to say anything because I was going to slip up about the very exciting things that you're excited about tomorrow that I'm going to be doing. Yeah. Key takeaways. You know, I think from start to beginning with Caitlin to Amy, of course, those two, I would love to get those two together in person. And the joy, the laughter, the fun, the spontaneous, I think will be incredible. All the way to ending with Jeff as well. And Agata was incredible. Alicia, naming all the people that we heard today. I think, you know, every day, every year that we do this, I always try to look for keywords in the chat that is so repetitive. That's like, what's the theme of today? And I feel like that thing is, for me, is just a reminder of who we are. And I'm going back with the acronym that first started it. We are people that just love what we do. Sometimes we don't love who we deal with, but we love what we do. We truly do love, you know, who we get to deal with. And I think it's important to remember that, because we've seen it so much. Is there's so many people knocking at the door of burnout. There's so many people that are struggling with mental and emotional health within the workplace. And I think it's important to just remember why we started what we did. And many of us, like myself, when I'm asked, how did I get into this space? I always say HR stands for Hostage Rogers, because you held me hostage. But I didn't dream of this. I know you're one of 3% of people who have this dream of being in HR, and there's no pun intended, that's the truth. But many of us, I've heard so many other people that's just like me, that says, I just happened to be in here. I stumbled, or I was held hostage. But we stayed because there was a purpose, and we championed that purpose. So I think it's important that we always just remember why we stayed And it's because we love something about what we do. And as Jeff said, the moment you don't love people,
maybe it's time to find another job.
Yeah.
They can use you over there in accounting or something else. I'm sure there's a place for you. I meant to call this out, so I'll share this really quick back on the screen for you if I can. So if you take the time this afternoon, this evening, tomorrow morning, think through what you learned today, share on LinkedIn. We'd love to give you a kudos. We're looking at those kind of people to give them a shout out or give them a prize or something else. So share what you're learning. It's not only for you, but this, as we heard from Caitlin this morning, this is about connecting with others, sharing, lifting them up. Rising tide lifts all ships, and that includes in our space. So take the time to share those things out. And I think that's it for today. Goodness, tomorrow, same time, same bat channel. We'll be right here with you. Looking forward to it. It'll be a fun experience, new speakers, new content, new ideas, but all driving towards let's find that joy we have in doing this work. And just a reminder that we're all in this together. So thank you all, and we'll see you again tomorrow.